Hi everyone, we hope you're doing well. We're hanging in there though honestly, we haven't been getting much sleep lately. Today, we want to answer a question we get a lot: how do we publish our audiobooks? First, we post most audiobooks on Patreon as paid content. They stay paid for a few months. After that, they become free to listen to on Patreon forever. A few weeks later, we post them on other places like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, X. Lately, things have been a bit slow in terms of new members. So we'd love your help. Please share our site with your friends or in places like Facebook groups, Twitter, X, Discord, Reddit, or novel forums. Even one share can really help us grow. Thanks so much for your support. Chapter 1. Extraordinary time had reached noon, and the golden sunlight skimmed over the city walls, leaving shadows in this ancient city of Shinigami County. Though the sun was at its zenith, the spring had just begun, and the weather was not as fierce as one might expect. On this street named Fruit Street, as usual, many peddlers and stall owners were hawking along the street. At the street corner, there were also some street performers from the rivers and lakes loudly calling for attention, attracting quite a few passers-by to stop and watch. The street, paved with bluish-gray bricks, was traversed by an enlarged and widened brown-yellow carriage, which rolled over the ground with a creaking noise. Inside the carriage, Suheng slowly opened his eyes. Less than an hour had passed since he had his morning meal, yet now, sitting in the carriage and smelling the aromas of fried pancakes, fresh pastries, and various fried foods in the air, he felt a faint sense of hunger again and couldn't help swallowing saliva repeatedly. Unconsciously, more than 5 years had passed since he transmigrated to this world called the Great Shu Dynasty, and he had gradually become accustomed to life here. When he first transmigrated, Suheng also harbored grand ambitions. He leveraged the knowledge in his memory to produce soap, refined salt, and high-proof alcohol, helping his family venture into new businesses and earning a hefty sum of silver. He was also eager to learn martial arts, yearning to traverse the martial world as a master. Well, unfortunately, Suheng's dream of becoming a martial arts master lasted only a span of 3 months. This world indeed had so-called martial arts, foundation training, and states of mind, but they focused more on conditioning the body rather than combat. Those so-called top masters in the Jiang could hardly defeat an armored soldier armed with a long spear with their bare hands. After realizing that this world did not even qualify as a low-level martial arts realm, Suheng's intense desire to become a martial arts master began to dwindle. He had strived for so long, and now, having transmigrated, he finally became a wealthy young master. Shouldn't he just enjoy life? This enjoyment of life lasted a full 5 years. Until an incident 3 months ago, Suheng was shocked to discover that he actually was. Nay. The neighing from outside the carriage interrupted Suheng's thoughts, and the carriage, which had been smoothly traveling down the road, slowly came to a stop. What's happened? Suheng asked through the carriage curtain. The coachman, named Li Si, was short in stature but sharp and capable, enjoyed the deep trust of Suheng's father, the elder master Su. Thus, he became Suheng's personal bodyguard and was almost inseparable from him when outside. Li Si stood on the carriage, looking up and observing for a while. After a moment, Li Si's voice came: "Someone has discovered a body in a well, and the officials are investigating. Many people are gawking, which has blocked the road." "Just go around it then," Suheng said without giving it much thought. "Giddy up. Giddy up." Li Si cracked his whip, steering the carriage to bypass the street ahead. Leaving Fruit Street, the carriage entered another slightly more desolate street lined with many large trees, Scholar Tree Street. Amidst the neighing, the carriage once again came to a halt. This time it was not due to an accident but because they had arrived at their destination. Li Si dismounted and opened the curtain, and Suheng slowly stepped out from the carriage, standing firmly on the ground. Facing him was a large courtyard's gray-white entrance, bathing in the mottled shadows of the scholar trees, with the signboard reading Pure Yang Martial Arts Hall in bold, flowing calligraphy. At the entrance, a female martial master dressed in a white practice outfit was already waiting. The martial master, Ning Wantong, appeared to be in her late 20s. Although her looks were not amazingly stunning, her fair face was still quite pleasant to look at. Especially her curvaceous figure was well defined, even through the loose-fitting outfit. It was apparent that her assets were abundant, exuding a mature aura. Disciple Brother Su. Ning Wantong was the daughter of the master of Pure Yang Martial Arts Hall. Pure Yang Martial Arts Hall, at one time, had its periods of glory in Shinigami County, but now, in the Great Shu Dynasty, where the overall ethos placed more emphasis on scholarship than martial arts, and practicing martial arts indeed hardly showed immediate results, the hall naturally declined over time. In recent years, it was even hard to maintain its existence. It was Suheng's joining and his casual financial support that helped the hall tide over its difficulties. Seeing her major benefactor arriving, Ning Wantong naturally had a smile full of amiability, and her attitude was very eager. "Sister Ning." Su Heng nodded slightly in greeting. Guided by Ning Wantong, the two passed through the gatehouse, crossed a beautifully landscaped garden, and then entered a side courtyard to the west. With Ning Wantong's assistance, Su Heng changed into clothes, also a pure white practice outfit. The two arrived at the practice room. The two-story practice room faced south and was spacious and bright. Inside the practice room, with floors made of solid wood and corners filled with wooden piles, sandbags, and more for training strength. Just past noon, 7 or 8 young disciples were practicing their foundational work while another solemn-looking older disciple meticulously pointed out the inadequacies in their postures. From one static movement to another static movement. With each transition in movement, there came the rhythmic grunts. The voices of 7 or 8 people rose in unison, powerfully resounding. Su Heng lingered briefly on the first floor, his gaze sweeping over these young disciples. Chapter 1 Extraordinary 2 Afterward, Ning Wantong and he had ascended to the second floor. Compared to the first floor, the training room on the second floor was much more spacious. Apart from a small wooden table in the center, a few meditation cushions, and a mural hanging on the eastern wall, there were no additional decorations. Sunlight poured through the open windows, casting into the room where one could even see the fine dust floating in the air. Next to the wooden table sat a bald middle-aged man, lean-bodied and not more than 5 feet tall, but his eyes were bright and spirited, showing great vitality. This man was called Ning Zaibai, the head of Pure Yang Martial Arts Hall, and nominally, Su Heng's master. Of course, nowadays, under the Great Shu dynasty, fewer and fewer people were willing to devote themselves to the arduous study of martial arts, and martial artists did not hold any special status. Moreover, the Pure Yang Martial Arts Hall had been revitalized with a fund provided by Su Heng, so, in their daily interactions, Su Heng's status appeared somewhat more esteemed. Upon seeing Su Heng arriving, Ning Zaibai also proactively stood up, squeezing a smile on his face. "Master Ning," Su Heng nodded slightly, and the two sat down opposite each other. "Has your cultivation been good recently?" Ning Zaibai initiated the conversation, while on the side, Ning Wantong brewed a pot of hot tea for them and then respectfully left. "All is well," Su Heng pondered, "but there are some things in my cultivation that I still don't quite understand." "What matters?" Seeing his significant patron's serious demeanor, Ning Zaibai instinctively straightened up, his face adopting a look of earnest attentiveness. The Pure Yang skill has 5 levels. After reaching the higher realms, not only can one benefit from cold and heat, be immune to all diseases, and even prolong life by 100 years while remaining full of vigor. But is that all there is? Is it possible to reach a higher realm through some special method or the use of elixirs, thereby obtaining incredible power? Su Heng gazed into Ning Zaibai's eyes, asking seriously. Upon hearing these words, Ning Zaibai's initially serious expression gradually became speechless. Although this was the case, the young Su Heng before him was someone he could not afford to offend. Ning Zaibai sipped his hot tea lightly, sighed helplessly, and then said earnestly, "In this world, being able to fight multiple opponents alone can be considered skillful. Being able to defeat armored warriors with bare hands can be considered first class. But a grandmaster, at most, can only simultaneously defeat 10 soldiers. The Pure Yang skill, although an ancient cultivation technique, cannot help you break through the human limits. More importantly, it focuses on regulating the spirit and following a balanced and harmonious path. There isn't any cultivation techniques in this world that can make a person break those limits. Even those grandmaster-level martial artists in the martial fraternity are strong merely because of 2 reasons. The first is their exceptional talent, and the second is that they devote all their time and energy to martial arts, engraving various techniques into their muscle memory. Thus, they can act faster than the brain can think, striking first even if they move after their opponent. Is that so? Su Heng gazed into Ning Zaibai's eyes, a bit disappointed but also seeing that his unassuming master was not lying. Demonstrate the stance of the Pure Yang skill, let me see how your recent cultivation is progressing. Seeing that Su Heng wanted to ask further, Ning Zaibai could only stealthily change the topic. Su Heng nodded, drank the tea in his cup in one gulp, and then rose from the meditation cushion. The Pure Yang skill is divided into stance work and breathing techniques. The so-called stance work refers to a series of static movements recorded in the Pure Yang skill, sometimes accompanied by specific mantras. The stance work of the Pure Yang skill consists of 12 forms, starting from the initial form where hands and feet align, elbows and knees meet, shoulders and hips joined, to the final form where the body slightly tilts, with arms opening up and down, the back of the head, neck, and spine forming one straight line. The transitions between movements are smooth and natural, with steady breathing, which qualifies the stance work of the Pure Yang skill. The breathing technique, likewise, has nothing special, and is even more straightforward. Ordinary breathing is only through the lungs, hence becoming short and rapid during intense exercise. But with the help of some special mantras and breathing techniques, the gases can permeate into the abdominal organs, making the breathing appear long and powerful. This technique is slightly similar to some advanced vocal techniques Suheng had encountered before. Not bad, not bad. After several sets of stances, Suheng's forehead was slightly sweaty. Ning Zibai handed him a clean white towel, his face showing genuine admiration. In the path of martial arts, you are truly talented. If you diligently study and practice, you could also become a grandmaster, Ning Zibai remarked. After saying this, before Suheng could reply, he just laughed to himself. However, even being a grandmaster might not mean much to you. Martial arts, for ordinary people, might barely be considered a path. But for the affluent Su family, not only is their wealth vast, as the eldest son, Suheng is destined to inherit this great business, a fortune many could only envy. Master Ning, I would like to be alone for a while. Suheng took the towel, wiped the sweat off his forehead, and then quietly spoke to Ning Zibai. Yes, that's fine, Ning Zibai thought little of it. He casually said, if there's anything else, just call me from downstairs. Okay. Suheng nodded. After Ning Zibai had left down the stairs, Suheng turned around, gazing at a somewhat mottled mural on the wall. Chapter 1 Extraordinary 3 The mural was simple, even hollow in description. The center depicted a crimson sun, surrounded by the tumult of white clouds as if buffeted by a great wind, and in the distance, one could faintly make out green mountains outlined by thick black strokes. In the art of the Great Zhou dynasty, it was customary to capture both form and spirit. From that perspective, the mural before him could only be considered mediocre, lacking any particularly outstanding features. Yet, whenever he practiced the pure yang skill while gazing at the mural before him, Suheng would always find himself coming to some sort of realization. Take the present moment, for example. Suheng looked at the mural, and though he was basking in the warm sunlight of the afternoon, an inexplicable gust seemed to blow towards him. It was as if he truly stood atop a dark and dreary mountain peak, with howling wind, rolling leaden clouds above, the sun rising, and myriads of lustrous golden rays scattering. Huff. Suheng's chest rose and fell. He closed his eyes, slowly coming back to his senses from the artistic conception of the painting. When he opened his eyes again, rows of grayish text faintly emerged before him, forming an attribute panel. Name, Suheng, height, 1.85 meters, weight, 215 pounds, cultivation technique, pure yang skill, 5th level, attribute points, 10. This simplistic attribute panel had abruptly appeared after Suheng began practicing the pure yang skill, and through his own verification, he had largely confirmed that the points in the panel were positively correlated with his weight. In other words, for every pound Suheng gained, an attribute point would be rewarded. As for why Suheng suddenly wanted to practice the pure yang skill, the reason was quite simple. Over the past 5+ years, Suheng had lived a life of indulgence, succumbing to pleasures, growing more corpulent, his resolve wearing thin day by day. He had initially intended to transform his lifestyle through practicing martial arts, to condition his body, and to increase his vitality and vigor. But he had not anticipated discovering his long-overdue golden finger just a few days after beginning the pure yang skill. Ning Zibai had indeed spoken the truth. Suheng's innate talent and constitution were exceptional, making him a candidate poised to become a grandmaster. In less than 3 months, Suheng had already perfected pure yang skill to completion. Although he was not clear about Ning Zibai's own level, judging from their recent conversation, Ning Zibai's mastery over the pure yang skill was likely far inferior to his own. Because, after reaching the 5th level, Suheng increasingly felt his body was like a ball inflated with air, filled with a frustrating sense of fullness that he had no way of releasing. He could vaguely sense the existence of another realm within the pure yang skill, a completely different new world, yet a thick layer of oil seemed to separate him from it, like looking at flowers through the fog, close enough to sense but unable to step into. It was for this reason that Suheng speculated the pure yang skill must have a 6th level, perhaps even more profound realms. However, to break through to this 6th level, he would need some sort of special catalyst to stimulate the process, and Suheng had come seeking information about this catalyst from Ning Zibai. Unfortunately, their conversation had yielded no substantial leads. Ning Zibai probably really doesn't know, but I still have a second method, Suheng muttered, his eyes vacant as he stared at the attribute panel before him. In the cultivation technique column, a faint gray plus sign appeared beneath the 5th level of the pure yang skill. Suheng concentrated his attention, touching the plus lightly. In an instant, a suction force emerged from nowhere, and the 10 hard-earned attribute points he had accumulated blurred and then vanished without a trace. Chapter 2 Mutation Suheng's body tingled as if electrified, a wave of numbness spreading throughout, accompanied by an indescribably comfortable feeling. Then, in the span of a single breath, Su Heng's body temperature began to rise, his skin reddening like that of a boiled shrimp. Thick beads of sweat formed on his forehead, his loose training clothes now soaked and clinging to his figure, highlighting the contours of his body. It was clearly visible. As Su Heng rapidly lost weight, his slightly plump body visibly shrank. His arms, legs, abdomen, and chest began to showcase prominent, robust, and powerfully masculine muscle definition. The sweat evaporated in the heat emanating from his body, leaving flame-like, dancing shadows under the bright sunlight. The thick veins within his body stirred and tensed, emitting sounds akin to a taut longbow with each of Su Heng's prolonged breaths. From Su Heng's perspective, the changes occurring inside his body were even more astonishing. Tiny veins grew, spreading like forking tree roots into muscles that were normally difficult to train, allowing him to mobilize more strength. He was already 19 this year, and logically, his body should not be growing rapidly anymore. But now, Su Heng could distinctly feel his body undergoing a second growth that defied common sense, feeling a tingling numbness as this high-speed growth persisted for several hours. When Su Heng finally reopened his eyes, the sky outside had dimmed, and he could even see a few fiery red clouds scattered across the horizon. How long have I been here? Su Heng wondered in surprise. He immediately noticed the changes in his body, having shed a great deal of fat, and felt incredibly light from head to toe. The training clothes that had fit him well before now hung loose. Especially when he subconsciously clenched his fists, the muscles in his arms tensing, he could clearly see veins as thick as chains tightly woven together, resembling the sculpted likeness of temple guardians, the sense of vigorous power radiating from within. He looked around. Coming to the tea table, Su Heng picked up the porcelain cup he had used earlier. Clenching his teeth, his thick fingers slowly exerted force, and a crisp cracking sound emanated from his palm, shattering the porcelain cup with a crash, and fine white shards trickled down his fingers, accumulating in a small pile on the table. Such power, Su Heng's pupils contracted slightly as he pondered. Though the cup was roughly made, it was exceedingly hard. If he could crush a clay-made porcelain cup, breaking an adult's skull with a single punch would be effortless. He could even bludgeon fierce beasts like tigers, leopards, and bears to death. Is such power truly still within the realm of the mundane? Su Heng opened his attribute panel. In the section for cultivation techniques, pure yang skill had reached the 6th level. Moreover, an additional category for realm had appeared on the panel, displaying simple content. Vein mutation, 3%, pretty much what I expected. Su Heng stroked his chin, a complete framework forming within his mind. Reaching the 6th layer of pure yang skill marked an entirely different realm, even touching upon bodily mutation, or rather, a second growth that could elicit strength far beyond that of ordinary people. This advancement normally required a unique catalyst for stimulation, but Su Heng bypassed this stage entirely through the use of attribute points, forcibly breaking through. Of course, the end results were roughly the same. But Su Heng wondered if there were others within the Great Zhou dynasty who had also reached the same realm. Moreover, what exactly was the catalyst needed for pure yang skill? He had investigated Ning Zaibai, who was indeed a true inheritor of pure yang skill and had once served in the residence of an important figure in the county city. Otherwise, Su Heng would not have chosen to practice at Pure Yang Martial Arts Hall, casually spending large amounts of silver. Even Ning Zaibai, a true inheritor, didn't know what the catalyst was, let alone the higher realms of Pure Yang skill. Why had these legacies been cut off? Could it be that some change had occurred in this world? Su Heng's mind involuntarily began to wander, but then he detected a strong scent of sweat on himself. It's getting late, I should head home, Su Heng thought. Losing himself in martial arts practice all day, in Mr. Su's eyes, was an irresponsible act. Although he didn't take it too seriously, arriving home too late would inevitably lead to a scolding, and that would be annoying. Su Heng dismissed further thoughts. Leaving the practice room, he washed himself simply in a secluded courtyard before changing back into his regular clothes. As Su Heng reached the entrance hall, he found Ning Wantong with her sleeves rolled up, sitting on a small wooden stool, washing vegetables in a wooden basin. Looking up, Ning Wantong tucked a few stray strands of hair behind her ears and, smiling, spoke to Su Heng, "Will you join us for dinner at the martial arts hall?" "Thanks, but no thanks," Su Heng declined with a shake of his head. He noticed Ning Wantong's gaze remained fixed on him, prompting his curiosity. "What's wrong? Is there something dirty on my face?" "No." With a warm and candid smile, Ning Wantong spoke, "I feel like you've changed a bit." "What's different about me?" Su Heng asked, looking at her with curiosity on his face. At this moment, the setting sun bathed Su Heng's robust and towering frame in a fiery red glow. In fairness, his looks were not extraordinarily handsome. However, with thick brows and large eyes, sun-kissed skin, and slightly curled long hair draped over his shoulders, he exuded an air of health and masculinity. A breeze came by, causing his black robe to flutter, outlining the strong muscles and pronounced sinews beneath. You seem sturdier than before, and there's also an indescribable fragrance about you. Ning Wantong flicked the droplets of water from her hands, giving him a careful look before she spoke earnestly. Creak creak. The wheels rolled over the stone pavement as Su Heng rode in the carriage heading home. At dusk, street vendors and stall owners along the road gradually packed up to go home, and there were fewer pedestrians, with wisps of cooking smoke rising from the white brick and grey tiled residences on both sides. Turning a corner and passing by a residence, Su Heng heard a muffled hubbub of discussion. The voices were deliberately suppressed, unclear as if in fear of something, as though scared to disturb some entity. The carriage came to a stop. Su Heng opened his eyes, a puzzled look on his face. What happened? After a moment, the driver Li Si's voice, full of shock and uncertainty, came from outside. Young master, it seems that another drowned body has been found. Another drowned body? Su Heng's eyebrows knit together, sensing that something was amiss. Although the current Great Zhou dynasty wasn't exactly bright and unblemished, murders were scarce, especially within a single day. Discovering two drowned bodies one after the other was highly unusual. Let's go down and take a look, Su Heng immediately said. Bypassing the onlookers, Su Heng and Li Si entered the residence. The tidiness of the double-entry residence was unremarkable, a lush locust tree planted in the center of the courtyard, under which stood a square well. The drowned body that had been pulled out lay on a bamboo mat near the well. Ah! Su Heng heard a small gasp from Li Si beside him. Li Si was usually composed, and such a loss of composure was rare for him. Su Heng couldn't help but look concerned. This man is named Li Chi, a distant relative of mine, Li Si said. Today, when we were passing by Guozi Street, I saw him selling osmanthus cakes on the street, though I didn't greet him. However, I never imagined that in just half a day. Are you certain it was just this afternoon that you saw him? Su Heng's gaze fell on the body, his expression serious and brows deeply furrowed. Positive, replied Li Si earnestly. But the body on the bamboo mat appeared jalouse, mouth agape, eyes and tongue bulging out. The skin was pallid and swollen, showcasing distinct greenish livor mortis and blackened marbling of the veins. The internal organs had begun to decay, causing the abdomen to bloat, resembling an overinflated ball, as if it might explode at any moment, quite terrifying to behold. Moreover, the scent of corpse decay thickened with time in the courtyard. Su Heng was not well versed in the specific changes that would occur to a body soaked in water. But of this he was certain. In just half a day, a body had no chance of decomposing to such an extent. It was as though some supernatural power had sucked away the body's life force, leading to rapid postmortem decay and making it impossible to maintain its original state. It's exactly like the one found earlier, too horrifying, someone said. I heard this is the seventh one in recent days. Could it be the legendary water ghost? I saw this person earlier too, I even bought pastries from his stall, who would have thought? Alas. The surrounding crowd also buzzed with speculation, the evening growing dim, casting long shadows from the locust tree upon the well, like a monstrous demon with bared fangs, creating an atmosphere of chill and oppression. The city's patrol bureau enforces the law, everyone not involved disperse immediately. A forceful shout rang out, and the crowd parted. A group of constables dressed in black robes, wielding long sticks, and carrying sabers at their waists hurried to the scene. Li Si tugged at Su Heng's sleeve. Young master, it's getting late, we should head home soon to avoid any impurities. Indeed. Su Heng looked up, the fiery red sun now hiding its last gleam of light. A lot had happened today, causing much delay. Indeed, it was time to rush back home. Chapter 3 Lessons. I think Junior Brother's cultivation has improved again. At Pure Yang Martial Arts Hall, Ning Wantong was having dinner with her father, Ning Zaibai. Ning Wantong was scraping rice in her bowl when she abruptly looked up, her gaze crossing the candle on the table to address Ning Zaibai. Junior brother? Ning Zaibai wiped a grain of rice from the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand and asked in confusion, which junior brother, Su Heng? Yes, Ning Wantong nodded. He has practiced Pure Yang skill for only less than 3 months, what improvement could be visible? Ning Zaibai said with a dismissive smile. Pure Yang skill is a genuine Taoist mental method that requires persistent effort. Even if that boy has decent talent, it would take over a decade to notice any change without considerable time. Is that so? Ning Wantong murmured in agreement, sounding subdued. As Ning Zaibai smiled, his expression stiffened slightly. He looked at his daughter, whose fair face turned completely red, possibly due to the candlelight or some other reason. With a slightly furrowed brow and a hint of suspicion, he asked, You haven't taken a liking to him, have you? Of course not. Ning Wantong's eyes widened. We differ so much in age, How could that even be possible? Alright then. Ning Zaibai didn't probe further and waited until dinner was finished. Ning Wantong stayed behind to clean up the dishes, while Ning Zaibai, holding a candle, went to the second floor of the training room. After meals, he would come here alone to sit quietly for a while, practice his mental method, and reflect on the day's gains and losses. This had become a habit over the years, unwavering for decades. This time was no exception. Outside the window, the moonlight was bright and clear, like a hazy mist passing through the open window and filling the room. Even without the candle's light, the room was clearly visible. Ning Zaibai sat down cross-legged, his eyes slightly closed. He soon recalled a conversation he had earlier with Su Heng. Ning Zaibai's innate talent was mediocre. After decades, he had only just managed to reach the third level of the pure yang skill. However, his master, the Nanshan Hermit, who had passed away over a decade ago, was a famous grandmaster in the martial world, having reached the limits of the pure yang skill. The Nanshan Hermit once lamented that something was lacking in this world, which made it impossible to perfect the martial path. If he had been born 300 years earlier, perhaps he could have stepped into an entirely different realm. At that time, Ning Zaibai was young. He didn't take this complaint to heart, thinking his master was merely boasting. His master, a renowned grandmaster in the martial arts community, seriously claimed that he was just a newcomer who had hardly stepped onto the path of martial arts. He wondered when he would become a grandmaster himself and say the same thing to his own disciples. Ah! Under the luminous moonlight, Ning Zaibai sighed. As the years passed, the youthful dreams drifted further away. Now, merely continuing to live and passing on the pure yang skill of the Nanshan Hermit consumed all his energy, leaving no room for the ambitions he once had. Looking back, only a touch of emotion remained. Above a grandmaster, one must undergo a transformation. Does the realm my master spoke of truly exist? Lost in thought, Ning Zaibai opened his eyes. On the wooden table in front of him, a shattered porcelain cup was turned into powder, forming a small pile at the edge of the table. Ning Zaibai was first stunned, then rubbed his eyes and leaned closer, even lifting the candle to make sure he wasn't seeing things. The second floor of the training room was completely empty, there was nothing else. During the entire afternoon, only Su Heng was alone here until he quietly left in the evening. Recalling what Ning Wantong had just said about Su Heng's seemingly improved cultivation. Could it be? A bizarre speculation appeared in Ning Zaibai's mind. This porcelain cup, could it have been crushed into powder by Su Heng's bare hand? Is this even human? Ning Zaibai subconsciously clasped another porcelain cup in his hand. He exerted force with his fingers, but the porcelain cup remained immovable, instead causing his fingers to ache intensely. Oh no! Ning Zaibai looked up at the bright moon outside the window, his mind a complete blank. Could it be that the boy has really developed something with pure yang skill? But my master, the Taoist from Nanshan, practiced for 30 years and never achieved this. How could he have managed it in just 3 months? Impossible. All he knows is to run outside, never doing anything serious, never coming home. All 3 of us have been waiting for you here, and the food has already gone cold. In a spacious and bright room within the Su family mansion. Su Heng's father, Old Master Su, was tapping his fingers on the dining table, causing the oil lamp on it to swing back and forth, reflecting Su Heng's somewhat helpless expression. Actually, you didn't need to wait for me, Su Heng finally spoke helplessly after Old Master Su had finished venting his anger. You could have eaten without me, I wouldn't mind eating what's left. Besides, with so many servants in the mansion, it would be completely possible to cook separately for me. You dare talk back? Old Master Su felt his authority as the family head being challenged, and he glared. Don't be angry, don't be angry. Su Heng's mother quickly reached out to hold Old Master Su's shoulder, speaking soothingly. Heng has been practicing martial arts at that martial arts hall recently, hasn't he? I see he has gotten much stronger lately, surely due to considerable hard training. Humphrey. Old Master Su snorted coldly. What's the use of practicing martial arts? These days the world is peaceful, the court values literature over martial arts. Even if you're a great fighter, what can you achieve? Even the so-called grandmaster on the rivers and lakes, if surrounded by 7 or 8 crossbowmen, would meet his demise if he is not careful. Not to mention the craftsmen in the court have developed muskets which could threaten a grandmaster from 100 steps away, even in the hands of an ordinary person. So you see, studying diligently and achieving scholarly honors is the true path. Another somewhat immature voice came from beside Su Heng. It was his younger brother, named Su Sheng. Additionally, Su Heng had a sister who was 2 years older than him, named Su Li. Little brother Su Sheng, only 12 years old, with fair skin, a handsome face, and rosy lips and white teeth, looked as pretty as a little girl. Yet there he sat at the dining table, trying hard to look like a little adult, shaking his head as he earnestly addressed Su Heng. Big brother, You're almost of age, and our parents are getting no younger. Let's not make our parents worry anymore. Su Sheng couldn't finish his sentence. Because Su Heng was tilting his head, looking down at him with an expressionless face, yet somehow frightening. Su Sheng couldn't hold back a shiver and timidly said, "Big brother?" Su Heng didn't respond, but took 2 chopsticks out of a bamboo tube and handed them to his little brother. Su Sheng took them, but his small face was puzzled. "Try to break them," Su Heng said. Su Sheng, though confused, did as told. Using his thigh as support, he applied force with both hands, and with a crisp sound, the 2 chopsticks easily snapped. Su Heng waved his hand grandly. He took all the chopsticks out of the bamboo tube and handed them to Su Sheng. "Try again?" Su Sheng did so, and this time, dozens of pairs of chopsticks gathered together, their thickness noticeably more substantial than Su Sheng's arm. His small hands struggled even to grip them, let alone break them. "I understand." Su Sheng looked up at Su Heng, carefully began. "A single pair of chopsticks can be easily broken, but many chopsticks together are unshakable. Big brother, you are using this method to tell me that the siblings of the Su family should be harmonious and supportive of each other. That's how we can protect our great family business." "Well said." Su Heng's face broke into a smile, just as his little brother was about to sigh in relief, but then Su Heng's tone abruptly changed. "Unfortunately, you missed the mark." As Su Sheng looked puzzled, Su Heng stretched out his hand, grasping all the chopsticks in his hand. His a large hand before Su Sheng's face, his burly wrist almost as thick as an ordinary person's calf. As Su Heng exerted force, veins bulged on his wrist, thick green-black lines protruding outward. In the orange glow of the firelight, the smile on Su Heng's face deepened. Crack. A crisp sound. Followed by a rapid, firecracker-like series of snapping sounds. With his fearsome wrist strength alone, Su Heng single-handedly broke dozens of chopsticks. The irregularly broken pieces of wood scattered across the table, bounced up, then fell again. Su Sheng's eyes widened, his face holding a trace of horror, but even more incredulity. The worldview he had formed over 12 years was being violently reshaped by his older brother. The room fell into silence, and it took several breaths before a slight sound was heard again. It was old Master Su's chopsticks falling to the floor from his hand. Chapter 4 Unforeseen Event. Su Laoyazi, the patriarch of the Su family, bent down with some difficulty to pick up the chopsticks that had fallen to the ground. He intended to replace it with a new one, but since the rest had been broken by Su Heng, he had no choice but to give up and haphazardly wiped the chopsticks on the tablecloth a couple of times. Su's mother was the first to come back to her senses. "Could that martial master surnamed Zhao, whom you hired for a hefty sum, do something like this?" Probably not." Su Laoyazi, looking at his precious son, was also somewhat bewildered. "And to think he claims to be a top-notch expert in the Jiang, costing us so much money every year." Su's mother murmured her complaint, reproaching her husband for squandering money. She looked at Su Heng, her face breaking into a gentle smile. "My son has only been practicing for 2 or 3 months and has reached such a level. You must have suffered a lot. Eat more meat so you can grow. Look how much you've slimmed down." "Thank you, mother." Su Heng devoured his meal. Nevertheless, he didn't forget about his silent little brother sitting beside him, pretending to be invisible. After showing off with a couple of bites of food, Su Heng threw down his chopsticks and patted Su Sheng's head. The latter's slender frame began to tremble like a quail being strangled by the neck. "Su Sheng. Here. Did you remember what I taught you?" Su Heng asked leisurely. "I remembered." Su Sheng stood up and said loudly, "I was wrong. I should not have challenged my second brother's authority. From now on, in the Su family, if second brother tells me to go east, I won't dare go west. If he tells me to go north, I will never head south." "Not bad, not bad." Su Heng's face lit up with a smile. "You're teachable." "All right, don't frighten your brother, he's still young," Su's mother said, looking at Su Sheng's earnest demeanor and chuckling behind her hand. "Oh yes," she began again in the candlelight, "I received news today that next month, your eldest sister Su Li will be coming home for a visit. Prepare for her arrival accordingly." "Su Li is coming back?" Hearing this name, both brothers, Su Heng and Su Sheng, lit up at the prospect. Su Li was 2 years older than Su Heng and had been studying at the Bailu Academy in the capital city since adulthood. The Great Zhou dynasty did not favor sons over daughters, so even women could enter the court as officials. Su Li was always the child of someone else's family, knowledgeable and reasonable, and also very beautiful. Moreover, despite her young age, she had passed the academy examination with a top score. The most crucial point was that she was incredibly strong, naturally possessing physical strength and power beyond ordinary people. Brothers Su Heng and Su Sheng had often been bullied by Su Li. Yet she could still outwardly maintain the appearance of a gentlewoman, leaving the two brothers with grievances they couldn't voice. After dinner, Su Heng returned to his room to rest. Although it was already nighttime, Su Heng felt not a hint of sleepiness. On one hand, his cultivation of the pure yang skill had broken through to a new realm, a change at the level of life itself, filled with abundant energy, like a wildfire raging, refusing to die down. On the other hand, it was only about 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening by the time of his previous life, indeed still too early to rest. Su Heng sat cross-legged on the bed and continued to cultivate the pure yang skill. By the 6th level of the pure yang skill, one no longer needed to rely on stance training and breathing methods to advance the cultivation, but rather had transitioned to a different method. Su Heng closed his eyes, visualizing in his mind the sun mural he had seen in the martial arts training hall, imagining himself standing on a peak with a strong wind howling around him, looking up at the rolling dark clouds, as a beam of golden sunlight pierced through the darkness and slowly painted the entire sea of clouds in a glorious golden red. Who exhale? Su Heng's breaths were long and sustained. Every breath extracted from the outside world soaked into his abdomen, flowing through various organs within his body. Considering Su Li's inborn strange strength, and Ning Zibai's assessment, even without the golden finger, Su Heng's martial arts talent also belonged to the highest of levels. He quickly entered a state of cultivation and noticed the differences brought about by the breakthrough in the pure yang skill. A subtle itch spread through his muscles, those veins that could only be felt but not controlled seemed to grow with life under the visualization chart of the pure yang skill. Like the roots of a plant, deeply rooting in the soil, drawing nourishment rapidly from the vastness of the earth and sky. Su Heng felt the same at this moment. He felt as though he had become a robust tree, rooting in the earth, reaching for the sunlight. During this process, the veins in his body became more resilient, and a greater number of fine veins branched out, spreading throughout his body. His muscles became more powerful, his internal organs more flexible, his vitality extraordinary. With every breath, Su Heng could feel an elevation in the essence of his life. Such cultivation fascinated him. The joy it brought even surpassed the many pleasures of consorting with women. Gurgle. The hunger emanating from his belly interrupted Su Heng's cultivation state, bringing him back to reality. Su Heng rubbed his stomach, the gray and white attribute panel materializing before his eyes. Vein mutation had increased from 3% to 4%. The remaining attribute points increased from 0 to 1. The pure yang skill was still at the 6th level. Su Heng did not know whether this cultivation technique had a 7th level, or even higher realms. Vein mutation must be a kind of realm. Su Heng began to ponder the values that appeared on the attribute panel and the things they represented. I wonder what changes will happen after vein mutation reaches 100%. Will it be a breakthrough to the next level, or will I obtain some kind of innate divine ability? Then there were the attribute points. Attribute points were not immediately obtained upon eating food. They had to be digested and absorbed by the stomach and intestines, becoming a part of one's body, increasing body weight. Only then could one gain an attribute point. Moreover, attribute points could not be obtained repeatedly through means like fat loss and muscle gain. For example, now Su Heng weighed 216 pounds, he must increase his weight to 217 pounds and only then could gain one attribute point. As his level increased, so did Su Heng's digestive ability, but the energy from food was limited, hence he often felt hungry. There are only 24 hours in a day, he couldn't just eat, sleep, then eat again all day. Therefore, finding a higher energy food is essential. Su Heng pushed open the door. Looking up, his gaze passed over the black heaves. The starlight was dim, and the distant sky began to brighten with a belly-like whiteness. The sun had not yet risen, and the moon had already set. This was the darkest time of the day, and gusts of cold wind blew, making Su Heng's stomach grumble. Thinking that there might be some leftovers in the kitchen, Su Heng decided to eat something to fill his stomach first and then have breakfast after some time. With this in mind, he began to move. However, he had not taken 2 steps before he heard a piercing scream coming from the neighboring courtyard. That is Su Heng's voice. Chapter 5 Demons. Chinking County was divided into several districts, and beneath those were various streets. For example, the Su family's residence was located in Chinking County, Jianyang District, San Street. This area was a typical wealthy neighborhood, constantly patrolled by constables day and night. Plus, the Su family's estate had many servants and martial masters employed at great expense. How could Su Heng encounter danger at home? Su Heng didn't have time to think any further. Although the two brothers often bickered on normal days, their relationship was quite good. He had been in this world for over 5 years, and Su Heng, who was only 12, was practically raised by him. Bang! Su Heng's toes tapped heavily on the ground. His leg muscles tightened like springs, storing energy, and he transformed into a shadow. In a single swift movement, he lightly flipped over the more than 2-meter-high courtyard wall. On the other side of the wall was the courtyard where Su Heng usually lived, similar in layout to Su Heng's own, except there was a well in the middle. At that moment, Su Sheng was by the well, his face pale. A dry, withered arm, covered in green hair, was grabbing Su Sheng's collar, trying to pull him into the well. Su Sheng struggled fiercely. His arms clung tightly to a gap next to the well. But the difference in strength between them was too great, and Su Sheng's thin body was slowly being pulled into the well. In this critical moment, Su Sheng caught a glimpse of Su Heng crossing over the courtyard wall from the corner of his eye. "Second brother, save me!" Su Sheng shouted desperately, his voice already tinged with a sob. "What kind of hellish thing is this?" Su Heng saw the green-haired arms stretching out from beneath the well and was also shocked. The structure of the joints wasn't like a human arm at all but resembled that of some strange ape that lived in the mouth of the well. Many thoughts flashed through Su Heng's mind, but his actions were not delayed at all. In one breath, Su Heng was already beside Su Sheng. With his left hand, he grabbed the back of Su Sheng's clothes, and with his right, he seized the slender arm extending from the well. Both of his stout arms exerted force simultaneously, and with a crisp ripping sound, Su Sheng's clothes tore, his small body plopping onto the ground. Overcome with emotion, he burst into loud cries. Noisy footsteps came from outside, as servants and martial masters from nearby courtyards, awakened by the commotion, rushed over. The creature in the well seemed to be frightened as well. With a bizarre cry, it tried to escape. Trying to escape. Su Heng's eyebrows furrowed, his right hand exerting even more force. "Get out here!" His jaws clenched, the sinewy muscles on his neck and chin standing out prominently, his expression ferocious as he physically dragged the creature out. Crack! The sound of dislocating bones came from the creature's arm. The already slender arm was stretched even longer by Su Heng's sheer force amid its struggles. By this time, the sun had risen, and a hint of red light spilled over the high courtyard walls, partially dispelling the darkness within the courtyard. With the help of the sunrise's red light, Su Heng was finally able to see the creature's appearance clearly. It had a hideous face, covered in dark green fur, with sharp teeth and red lights flickering in its eyes. Its body was elongated, appearing at first glance to be almost 2 meters tall like a thin monkey, but its face was far too ferocious. The look in its eyes as it faced Su Heng contained undissolvable hatred and malice. With a spit, the creature opened its mouth, letting out another sharp scream. Simultaneously, it spewed a stream of dark green venom directly at Su Heng's cheek. Su Heng dodged to the side, as the monster seized the moment to struggle violently. With a crisp crunch, a large piece of flesh from its arm was torn off by Su Heng. However, the monster also managed to escape from Su Heng's grasp, falling into the water with a splash, and ripples formed on the well's surface, followed by a string of bubbles, before it disappeared into the pitch-black water. Damn it! Su Heng's expression turned a bit ugly. Recalling the resentful expression on the monster's face just now, he felt that this would not end so quickly. And there was also yesterday, when he returned home from the Pure Yang martial arts hall. The body on the road that had been displayed like a giant, could it also be the doing of this monster? Yet he had been in this world for over 5 years, why had he never encountered any hint of such things before, while recently a series of inexplicable and eerie events had continuously surfaced in Chinking County? For a moment, Su Heng felt extremely disturbed. Gurgle. His stomach unwelcomely made a noise again, and hunger surged within him. A strong exotic fragrance was stimulating Su Heng's stomach, and thick saliva uncontrollably secreted in his mouth. What is this smell? Su Heng looked down and found that the smell was coming from his own hands. In his hand, he was holding a piece of the monster's flesh, about half a pound, one side of which was covered with dark green hair, while the other side slowly leaked blood. The monster's blood was dark green, and the smell was coming from this fresh flesh. Why is there a strange smell in this courtyard? A middle-aged man with a square face and a sturdy build, sporting a beard, walked in from the archway. He was holding a torch in his left hand and pressing on the sheathed sword that hung from his waist with his right hand, with 7 or 8 robust protectors following behind him. This man was named Zhao Hu. He was a top martial master whom the elderly Mr. Su had hired at great cost. He was considered a first-class expert in the martial world. Second young master. Zhao Hu was hardy but knew the proper behavior of advancing and retreating. Upon seeing Su Heng, he handed the torch to a protector beside him, bowed with his hands clasped, and began to explain. I was patrolling outside just now when I heard the third young master's cries, so I hurried over. A moment later, Mr. Su, disheveled and with messy hair, also appeared in the courtyard. He first glanced at Su Heng, who was standing silently to the side, and then at Su Sheng, who was timidly standing behind Su Heng, his fair face still bearing tear stains. What's going on here, making all this noise so early in the morning? Mr. Su furrowed his brows and spoke with feigned authority. Did you bully your younger brother again? Su Heng glanced at Mr. Su, then paused momentarily on Zhao Hu. being able to become a protector, these individuals were naturally trustworthy and considered inner members of the family. After a short contemplation, Su Heng spoke up solemnly, "Just now, by the well, the third young master was attacked by a monster." "What?" Mr. Su's eyes widened. Zhao Hu and the protectors beside him looked surprised, but none dared to speak out of turn. "Are you muddled from sleep? There are no such things as demons and monsters in this world, just fabrications by storytellers. I keep telling you to read more books instead of foolishly fooling around all day." Su Heng didn't retort, but calmly extended his hand. In his hand, a chunk of bloodied flesh was clearly visible, with thick, dark green blood slowly dripping from between his fingers. Mr. Su's eyes widened, a chill ran up his spine to his brain, instantly dispelling any remnants of sleepiness, and he became completely alert. Chapter 6 Delicacies. This. The elder of the Su family stared at the bizarre piece of meat in Su Heng's hand, feeling that his worldview had been greatly shaken, unable to speak for a long while. After a moment, the elder regained the ability to organize his speech. He turned his head to Zhao Hu beside him. "Martial Master Zhao, during your younger days when you traveled everywhere, have you ever come across something like this?" "In my days wandering the martial world, indeed I have heard plenty of taboos and legends related to demons and evil spirits." Zhao Hu also had a strange expression on his face, and he spoke slowly, "But if you're asking about personal experiences, this is also a first for me." However, Zhao Hu's gaze towards Su Heng carried a trace of respect. "Second young Master Su is truly brave, extraordinary, to have such courage after such a short time of martial arts training. Truly, a hero emerges from youth. Remarkable, absolutely remarkable. What's important is how to deal with this situation." Su Heng had not a hint of pride, his gaze calmly resting on the elder of the Su family. "First, let's block this well." The Su elder twirled his goatee chin as he cautiously spoke. "Also, we shouldn't let anyone live in this courtyard anymore. Su Sheng, there are 2 rooms in your second brother's courtyard. You and your brother can stay together in one courtyard. Nearby there's Xinger Mountain, and upon it lies Dinglan Temple. It is said that the monks in Dinglan Temple possess divine skills and are virtuous ascetics of high practice. I plan to donate a sum of silver to the temple and invite the monks to perform a ritual at our residence." Speaking of inviting monks to perform a ritual, the Su elder's pained expression was written all over his face. But compared to the safety of his progeny, this amount of money counted for nothing. "Right." The Su elder accidentally yanked out a whisker from his chin, grimacing in pain. He looked up at Su Heng, who had grown much taller and sturdier since starting his martial training, his vitality and spirit visibly abundant. "And you?" The elder stretched out his finger towards Su Heng, taking a deep breath as if he had made up his mind. "Starting now, I will give you 1,000. No. I'll give you 1,500 silver taels every month for you to use for your martial arts training. You can use this silver as you see fit." "Good." Su Heng's eyes lit up. In this world, silver had strong purchasing power, with 1 silver tael being roughly equivalent to 1,000 units of currency from his former life. 1,500 silver taels meant a personal expenditure of 1.5 million a month. Although the Su family was wealthy and influential, it was not easy to take out such a large sum of silver every month. Nevertheless, the Su elder's attitude when making this decision was very firm. Where there are ways to save, one should save, but one should not hesitate to spend where it is necessary. Since Su Heng had already proven his extraordinary martial talent, and given the various strange events occurring in Shenking County, it indicated that some dangerous, yet unknown changes were taking place. Therefore, he was willing to prepare in advance, sparing no expense to support Su Heng's martial arts training. And for Su Heng, whether it was searching for martial arts manuals, seeking out famous masters, or purchasing a large amount of precious medicinal materials for supplements to gain attribute points, it all required money to be spent. Since the elder of the Su family was willing to provide strong support, Su Heng naturally would not refuse. After having breakfast, the hunger in Su Heng's belly was finally quelled. As his level of cultivation improved, Su Heng's appetite became even more astonishing. Just for one breakfast, to feel satiated, Su Heng had to consume around 4 to 5 jin, approximately 2 to 2.5 kg, of meat alone, not to mention various amounts of vegetables, soups, and medicinal dishes stewed with various precious Chinese medicinal ingredients. The meat that Su Heng consumed was not common pork or beef but more precious deer meat. Deer meat can nourish the spleen and stomach, benefit qi and blood, support vital energy, strengthen yin and benefit essence, and warm the waist and spine. It's truly a substantial tonic, and with the same amount, Su Heng could gain more attribute points from deer meat. And like this meal, Su Heng had to eat 7 to 8 times a day. Luckily, the Su family had substantial wealth and savings. Otherwise, if Su Heng had transmigrated into an ordinary family, where even getting enough food to stay warm was a problem every day. Even with such a golden finger, it would be impossible to exert its effect in a short time. Bang! He closed the door and returned to his room. On the red-lacquered long table in front of him stood a brass brazier, its charcoal fire burning vigorously. Above the brazier was a delicate blue and white porcelain teapot. Su-heng wasn't intending to brew tea, rather, he planned to research the demon flesh he had torn from the water ghost. This piece of demon flesh weighed about half a pound and one could faintly discern the muscle lines in it. The flesh, placed on the cutting board, had its hair plucked out and its dark green blood cleaned off, leaving behind a piece of meat that was neat and tidy, save for the irregular tear marks at the edges due to violence. Su-heng picked up a sharp knife. He carefully sliced off a small piece. The resistance he felt through the knife handle was tough, making it feel to Su-heng like he was cutting a small piece of tanned cowhide. He placed the small piece of flesh into the teapot. The liquid inside had started boiling, gurgling and bubbling, and the demon flesh was quickly cooked, changing color and emitting a faint, pleasant fragrance. Su-heng thought there must be some problem with his sense of smell. Because he had asked others, and they said that demons carry a strange odor, somewhat similar to the smell of a corpse. But to Su-heng's senses, it was a tempting aroma, like a dish meticulously cooked by a master chef. Even though Su-heng had just had his breakfast and wasn't hungry, the special scent still made him involuntarily swallow his saliva twice. He took a pair of chopsticks and lifted the cooked piece of demon flesh out of the boiling water. Su-heng examined it closely, his eyebrows slightly furrowed, hesitating in his mind, somewhat indecisive. He recalled the terrifying and hateful face of the demon in the well and its elongated and deformed body, then looked at the fragrant piece of flesh in front of him. It seemed impossible to associate the two with each other. Furthermore, Su-heng was also concerned about the risk of poisoning from eating something haphazardly, but considering that the water had been boiling for so long, and it was only a small piece, there shouldn't be too much of a problem. With this thought, Su-heng made up his mind, stuffed that small piece of flesh into his mouth, and began to slowly chew. Crack! It was like a golden flash of lightning exploding in his mind. In his previous life, Su-heng had watched some cooking-themed anime. The top-notch delicacies in those shows would give off a golden glow when finished, and tasting them was likened to being struck by lightning, able to bring a person to joyful tears. Of course, those were all exaggerated artistic expressions, such food simply could not exist in the real world. But now it was different. Su-heng truly felt as if he were experiencing it firsthand. This demon's flesh was unbelievably delicious. But it wasn't just delicious. Su-heng could feel the muscles in his intestines writhing as if stimulated, rapidly absorbing the nutrients from his breakfast. Even his previously dormant pure yang skill had begun to operate automatically, producing a tingling sensation throughout his muscles, a sign that all the meridians in his body were being stimulated to transform and grow further. Chapter 7, Black Market. Just as I expected, the flesh and blood of demons are a great supplement for me, enabling me to quickly gain attribute points. Su-heng put down his chopsticks, furrowing his brows in thought. Using a small piece of demon flesh and mixing it with a large amount of ordinary ingredients, I can bring out its effects to the greatest extent. However, even so, the change it brings won't be too significant. The amount of this demon's flesh is just too little, barely enough to last a day. However, it does provide me with a new idea. Perhaps I could try to purchase some bizarre ingredients to experiment with, but I need to inquire through various channels to see how I can acquire such items. 2 days blinked by. That morning, as Su-heng was leaving his mansion, he was stopped by someone. This was a young man with a warm smile, dressed in a brocade robe, with a valuable Kai Dragon jade pendant hanging at his waist. Despite the early spring weather still being a bit chilly, this fellow was pretentiously holding a folding fan, looking rather foolish. This person was named Zuda. In Shinigami County, there were the 4 major families, Su, Zu, Zu, and He. These families each managed different businesses, like the Su family running cloth and trade, the Zu family controlling salt affairs, the He family overseeing medicinal materials, and the Zu family being the landowners with the most land in Shinigami County, controlling food supply. In the past, the Zu family had the most power. But in recent years, thanks to some knowledge Su-heng brought from his previous life, the Su family's business had also developed very well, even selling goods to other jurisdictions, subtly showing signs of competing with the Zu family. The core businesses of the 4 families were different, so there wasn't any particularly fierce competition among them. While Su-heng wasn't too clear about what the heads of these families thought privately, the relationships on the surface were maintained quite well. During festive seasons, there would be exchanges of favors, and the families were interlinked by marriages, having intricate connections among them. The residences of the Zu family and Su family were not far from each other, and Su-heng and Zuda, being of similar age and having grown up together, naturally had a good relationship. The thing you asked me to do, I've taken care of it for you, Zuda said excitedly to Suheng. Oh? Suheng raised an eyebrow, assuming an attentive expression. Do you have the cultivation technique manual I was looking for in your hand? Not that, those legendary cultivation technique manuals are too mysterious. But really, can they do what the stories describe, like flying through the sky and living forever? Zuda blinked. He naturally knew that Suheng practiced martial arts. Initially assuming it was merely a hobby, he even bet with some friends how long Suheng would stick with it. Unexpectedly, Suheng continued for 3 months. And his changes were really obvious. He had grown noticeably taller and stronger, and his eyes had become particularly bright. This made Zuda itch to start practicing martial arts too, but unfortunately, the hospital martial master in his family tactfully informed him that he lacked the innate potential. Disappointed, Zuda had to give up on that idea. Don't waste my time, Suheng urged. Zuda was not a bad person, quite enthusiastic, but he talked too much, sometimes making Suheng feel annoyed. There's an old saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. I've found you a way in. There's someone inside selling martial arts techniques and other things that should not see the light of day. Zuda sneakily glanced around, seeing no one else on the street. He then lowered his voice. What things? Suheng, seeing his mysterious air, was also somewhat curious. The black market, have you heard of this? Zuda said. It initially started as a temporary stall set up by a group of tomb robbers and smugglers but eventually attracted many unsavory individuals, gradually evolving into a sizable market. Inside, you can find anything, although the authenticity of the items can't be guaranteed. You have to rely on your own judgment. Moreover, this place is illegal, the authorities ignore it, so you need to be very careful if you plan to go there, and it's best to bring a couple of protectors. The black market. Suheng had heard of this place but didn't know exactly where it was or how to get in. How should one get there? First, you need a token, then a specific time and place. How can I obtain a token? You don't need to get one. Zuda chuckled. I have one right here, giving it to you, brother. That's quite generous of me. Zuda pulled out a black jade token from his bosom, engraved with crude stripes, roughly the size of a playing card, and handed it to Suheng. Then the time and place. Zuda told Suheng the essential details. Suheng casually stuffed the jade token into his robe and bowed his fists towards Zuda, saying earnestly, You've really helped me a lot this time, I owe you a favor. Hey, the two of us brothers shouldn't stand on ceremony, no need to be so formal. Zuda waved his hand, speaking carelessly, just invite me for a meal at the Bright Moon Tower when you have the time. Moreover, the token isn't expensive, it's all about how you obtain it. I also heard about it from a protector in my family, it didn't take much effort, so don't worry about it too much. The black market mentioned by Zuda was not in Chinking County, but in a dilapidated small town about 10 kilometers outside the city. Conveniently, tonight at the hour of Zoo, around 7 p.m., the black market was to open. Since the water ghost attack on Suheng had felt an indescribable urgency within him. Thus, after confirming the information was true, he set off for the black market with 2 guards in tow this evening. The town was decrepit, situated in a mountainous ravine. The sun had already set behind the mountains, and a hazy crescent moon hung in the sky. The surrounding environment was dim, faint beastly roars and strange rustling sounds intermittently audible. In his previous life, in bustling metropolises, 7 or 8 p.m. was just the start of nightlife. But in this ancient dynasty, everything was different. It was pitch dark outside, nothing was visible, and it was Suheng's first time venturing out of the city alone at night. However, his physique was now far superior to ordinary people, and he boldly led the way at the front, making the 2 protectors following him look frail in this unfamiliar environment, very vigilant. In the center of the small town where the black market was located was a rundown alley, with decrepit houses on both sides hanging lanterns and displaying various goods. Some people simply sat on both sides of the street, spreading out brown paper in front of them, holding a dim lantern, resembling a makeshift street stall. The light from the lanterns was faint, only brightening the scattered items on the stalls, but the faces behind them remained unseen. Chapter 8, Tai Sui Suheng, accompanied by his 2 protectors, walked down the street at the heart of the black market, his gaze sweeping over the stalls on either side, searching for what he needed. The breakthrough in the pure yang skill had brought about improvements across the board. Not only his physique, Suheng's senses had also become unusually sharp. He could smell the stale, moldy scent in the air, and beneath this decay, a more subtle scent of blood. This place was clearly not peaceful, with frequent bloody conflicts to the point that even the rains couldn't wash away the scent of blood, leaving a lingering shadow of gore. There were still quite a few people coming and going in the black market, but everyone was in a hurry, heads lowered, Even when they occasionally looked up to survey their surroundings, their expressions were very cautious. Some wore masks, concealing their true faces. If they found what they were looking for in the market, they would reach out and silently negotiate prices with the vendor under the cover of long sleeves. If they could not agree, they would leave. If they agreed, then they would quickly pay and leave. Everyone deliberately kept their voices low to shorten the transaction process, fearing it might attract attention. A faint fishy smell wafted from a stall to the left front, drawing Su Heng's attention. The vendor was a middle-aged man wearing a straw hat and dressed in hemp short clothes. Seeing Su Heng approach, the middle-aged man raised his head, revealing a waxen, sallow face under his broad-brimmed straw hat, resembling the face of a poor farmer accustomed to facing the soil. In front of the farmer, the stall showcased only one item. It was a large mass of pure white fat without a trace of red blood, muscle, or sinew. Despite its appearance, it didn't feel overly greasy. Its surface was soft and elastic. If it hadn't been for the distinct smell of fat, Su Heng would have thought it was a chunk of jelly. "What is this?" Su Heng asked, a curious look on his face. His voice lowered. "Age-old flesh," the farmer replied, glancing at Su Heng's tall and robust figure. A flicker of fear crossed his dull, yellow face, but he seriously added, "Grows from the ground, eating it greatly benefits one's health and boosts vitality. If you want to sell herbs well, just blow hard in the direction of boosting vitality." Su Heng thought to himself. But complaints aside, the chunk of white flesh indeed seemed extraordinary. Apart from the fishy smell, Su Heng also detected a very faint, familiar fragrance. He knew this scent well. Not long ago, Su Heng had smelled the same scent from the flesh and blood of a demon. Does this flesh come from a demon? Su Heng wondered. However, it seemed not quite the case, as the demonic scent on it was too faint. It must be some byproduct from a demon. "How much per pound?" Su Heng asked. "1 silver tael per pound," the farmer extended a finger. "Deal." Su Heng really needed this age-old flesh and was not in the mood to bargain. "How many pounds do you have?" "I'll take it all." 30 pounds, 30 silver taels in total. The farmer's fingers trembled slightly, a flush of excitement appeared on his waxen face, impossible to contain. Su Heng waved his hand and pulled out several pieces of broken silver from his bosom, tossing them in front of the farmer. The farmer caught them, weighing them briefly and confirming the amounts were correct. "All this meat is yours now." The farmer carefully tucked the silver into his robe, put on his straw hat, and turned to quickly disappear into the darkness. He left behind his stall and even the red lantern hanging there. The age-old flesh appeared soft, but it actually had considerable toughness. Su Heng packed it in his bag and slung it over his shoulder. The 2 guards beside him offered to carry it for Su Heng, but he shook his head and refused. On one hand, both guards were ordinary people, and it wasn't easy for them to walk more than 10 kilometers on mountain roads with dozens of kilograms of weight on their backs. On the other hand, the chunk of Tai Sui meat was suspected to be related to demons, and Su Heng was also afraid that they might be contaminated by unclean things. As for himself, he didn't mind, and dozens of kilograms of weight was really nothing for Su Heng. He felt no strain at all. He continued to wander around the black market, from east to west. Su Heng had spent nearly 100 silver taels and bought several martial arts styles. These martial arts were not inner strength techniques like the pure yang skill, but instead consisted of various sword techniques and moves. Although they were considered exquisite, they were not on the same level in terms of value and effect as the pure yang skill. The reason for the purchase was, mainly because Su Heng felt that some of the power delivery techniques explained were worth learning. Moreover, with the foreseeable future where demons would further revive and the world would become more chaotic, Su Heng planned to set up a small scripture pavilion at home, collecting martial arts from the Jiang for the servants and protectors in his family to study. Even if they couldn't combat the demons, handling some opportunistic ordinary people shouldn't be a big problem. After all, the Su family was large and prominent. Once order collapsed, there would be countless people eyeing them with envy, so it was necessary to prepare in advance. Not having collected any inner strength techniques like the pure yang skill at the black market, Su Heng was somewhat disappointed. But acquiring these several sword and fist techniques still made the trip worthwhile. Especially the more than 30 kilograms of Tai Sui meat, which was a completely unexpected joy. The gains this time far exceeded expectations, Su Heng said as he left with his bundle. Along the way, he bought books, spending lavishly and scattering large amounts of silver taels, which attracted quite a bit of attention. Some of the masked individuals lingered subtly around Su Heng, clearly harboring malicious intentions. Su Heng was not intimidated, and even felt a bit of anticipation. If these people intended to take advantage of the situation to rob him, he would fight them fiercely. Having crossed over to the Great Zhou dynasty for over 5 years, Su Heng lived in luxury, not having encountered any significant dangers or shed blood. But having progressed in martial arts, especially after encountering demons, Su Heng's heart began to change gradually. He felt both nervous and afraid of the potential conflicts that might occur, yet there was also an inexplicable surge of impulse and excitement. These two emotions intermingled, but his desire for the latter was clearly stronger. Unfortunately, Su Heng, carrying more than 30 kilograms, strode briskly on the mountain road. In addition, with the practice of pure yang skill and devouring demon flesh, he had a physique far surpassing that of ordinary people. Some of the greedy individuals in the black market, though, ultimately cherished their lives. Wealth was precious, but one had to be alive to enjoy it. Taking such a huge risk was not worth it. Thus, Su Heng and the two guards made their way back to the city. Upon seeing the city gates close, the bright lights on the city streets, and the patrolling government officials, both guards let out a big sigh of relief. Although it was Su Heng who carried the 30 kilograms of Tai Sui meat, it was they who sweated profusely and panted with exhaustion. Chapter 9 limits. Su Heng purchased a residence in the 9th Fang near Jinyangfang. On one hand, it was necessary for his daily martial arts practice, while on the other, Su Heng wished to avoid the demonic scent on his body, which could attract unclean entities and harm his family. This house was located less than 2 blocks from the Su family's mansion. If there was ever an emergency at home, Su Heng, with his current level of perception, could quickly and timely hurry back upon hearing any disturbances. With the aid of Tai Sui meat, Su Heng's cultivation speed was astonishing. In the past, it would take 5 to 6 days for Su Heng to gain 1 attribute point. But with Tai Sui meat and spending a fortune on various precious supplements, ingredients, and herbs, the efficiency of gaining attribute points increased to 1 per day. The advancement of the pure yang skill was rapid, and the degree of vein mutation also steadily improved. Almost every morning, waking up and standing in the courtyard, looking up at the sun, Su Heng could distinctly feel the transformation occurring in his body. It was a metamorphosis from a fragile mortal into a fierce beast that devoured demons. A few more days passed, and the mage whom grandfather Su had generously paid to come from Dinglan Temple completed a ritual at their home. It must be said, those old monks seemed proficient during the ceremony, but in Su Heng's eyes, these monks were just ordinary people. As for whether the sutras and scrolls had any effect on suppressing demons, Su Heng could not conclude. But since then, there had actually been no more occurrences of people drowning in wells in Shinigami County. Everything returned to its usual tranquility, with people coming and going in Shinigami County, and the hustle and bustle as busy as ever, but Su Heng did not believe the matter would end so simply. On one hand, Su Heng continued to collect martial arts and focus on cultivation. On the other hand, Su Heng also investigated county records and gathered ancient rumors from the elders, summarizing them. These diverse sources of information came together, gradually unveiling a corner of a mysterious and chilling world before him. In the blink of an eye, more than half a month had passed. This evening, Su Heng sat in his study, flipping through thick, ancient books by the crimson light of the setting sun. In the 89th year of the Daiju, in Shinigami County, there was an object like a hat that flew into people's homes at night, transforming into a large wolf and killing dozens. In the 96th year of the Daiju, Taoist Shaoxuan of Beisheng Mountain claimed he would ascend to enlightenment in 3 days, and hundreds of disciples attended the ceremony. Taoist Shaoxuan's chest and abdomen were torn open, his organs ejected from his body, and over 300 people present went mad, biting each other, with heavy casualties. In the 116th year of the Daiju, in Lianshan City, there were water ghosts with slender bodies and ape-like faces that could hide in the water. They were strong, fond of consuming human vitality, and the dead appeared drowned. Endless rain poured down for 10 days, spreading plague, and people attacked each other, resulting in over 100,000 casualties. Water ghosts. Upon turning to the last page and seeing this brief record, Su Heng's eyes widened as he felt a chill rise up his back. The water ghosts described in this ancient book were almost identical to the well demon he had encountered before. Moreover, considering the unexplained drownings in Shinigami County, it seemed he might also find the answer within this record. If this continues, then it's going to be heavy rains, a plague. Su Heng sighed deeply, closing the ancient book and massaging his slightly swollen temples. According to the record in the book, these so-called ghosts and monsters also have a growth process. Initially, they are still physical beings, and even an ordinary person who has never cultivated could combat them with weapons and cause damage. But once they grow to a certain realm, awaken various innate divine abilities, and can command the wind and rain and hide within the creation, it will become very, very difficult to deal with them then. Just like the current Su Heng, if he were to fight a water ghost head-on, he was very confident he could kill it. But the problem is, water ghosts can hide in water, and once they conceal themselves, and he can't find their tracks, Su Heng is out of options. Should I try to persuade the old man to move, to leave Shinigami County? Su Heng thought of this idea, but it wasn't feasible. The Su family had significant assets, moving wouldn't be easy. Moreover, another important point, if they moved away from Chinking County, where should they move to? Based on the news he had gathered, the resurgence of demons and ghosts was happening throughout the entire Danzō dynasty. It was a changing era. In Chinking County, they encountered still developing water ghosts, but moving elsewhere, they might encounter even more terrifying ghosts and monsters. And there's Su Li. Su Heng thought of his sister who went out to study. From the provincial city to Chinking County, spanning hundreds of kilometers, she might inevitably encounter some unclean beings on the road, and he didn't want to think deeper about whether she would run into any trouble. Su Heng's mind was a mess. The future, with all its uncertainties, really is too much. He watched the gradually dimming sunset outside the window and sighed deeply, his gaze becoming determined. In an era of chaos and monsters, only strength can protect oneself, protect one's family. The gray and white attributes panel appeared before his eyes again. Height, 1.87 meters, weight, 235 kilograms, cultivation technique, pure yang skill, level 6, vein mutation, 35%, attribute points, 20, compared to over half a month ago when he had just broken through in the pure yang skill. Su Heng had gained 20 kilograms, but his height had only increased by 2 centimeters. Yet his figure didn't appear bloated at all, his physique was healthy and coordinated, with smooth and powerful muscle lines. It was clear to see, this weight gain had been added to the density of his muscles and bones. Apart from the pure yang skill, Su Heng had collected 2 other internal cultivation techniques. They were the Black Evil technique and the Red Poison technique. The former was acquired by spending hundreds of silver at a black market, while the latter was obtained from a fallen martial master living in seclusion within Chinking County. Compared to the pure yang skill, these 2 techniques were more specialized and quite incomplete. Su Heng had originally planned to try training in them, using his attribute points, but after seeing the collected data, he changed his mind. First, I'll cultivate the pure yang skill to great perfection. Once there's no further progress, then I'll try the other 2 techniques. The pure yang skill was balanced and peaceful, with the most complete heritage and the greatest potential. Unquestionably, Su Heng planned to make the pure yang skill his primary cultivation method, while the other 2 techniques could serve as references and supplementary training. With this thought in mind, Su Heng no longer hesitated. Pure yang skill, let's see where your limits lie. Accompanied by a long and heavy breath, the 20 attribute points he had accumulated over half a month disappeared in an instant. The realms after the pure yang skill initially blurred, jumping from level 6 to level 7, then changed again, finally stabilizing at level 8. And when the pure yang skill broke through to level 8, a gray bracket appeared behind it, revealing a new term. Chapter 10 Zombie Transformation Pure Yang Skill Level 8, Special Effect, Pure Yang True Chi. Su Heng had heard about the concept of True Chi from his bargain master, Ning Zai Bai. Simply put, True Chi is the physical manifestation of the body's spirit, Chi, and mental strength. Only when one's body is robust, spirit full, and all attributes peak can a grandmaster possibly sense the presence of True Chi within their body. However, Su Heng's current state was somewhat different. He could not only distinctly feel it but also was able to utilize it. Ho! With a prolonged breath, Su Heng's chest expanded, pushing against the corners of his loose robe. As the True Chi circulated within his body, his temperature rose rapidly. Thick, crimson veins surfaced on his bronze skin. Sweat secreted from his pores and evaporated upon absorbing heat, so much so that visible mist formed around his body. This mist twisted the sunset, swirling continuously, looking from a distance as if a rampant flame was burning on his body. The edges of Su Heng's black robe moved without wind, fluttering up and down. Swish! As Su Heng exhaled a breath of turbid air, he opened his eyes. His once pitch-black pupils now seemed to have torch fires burning within them, giving off a scorching dark red hue. In the middle of the courtyard where he was, there was an ancient tree that 2 people could barely wrap their arms around. Its species was unknown, as was the number of years it had grown there, but it was lush with branches and leaves. Bang! Su Heng threw a punch. The fist wind tore through the air, emitting a sharp whistle. The ancient tree was as if hit by a cannonball, erupting with a loud noise, as a mass of withered branches and leaves fell rustling down. Su Heng embraced the air in front of him with both arms, inhaling and exhaling with deep breaths, gradually dispersing the pure Yang True Chi and returning to a normal state. He looked down at the ancient tree beside him, his pupils slightly narrowing. There, where his punch had landed, a basin-sized crater had appeared. Moreover, its edges were pitch black, with wisps of white smoke emerging, showing clear signs of charring. Being able to break an ancient tree with a bare body was barely within Su Heng's comprehension, but charring living wood with a single punch was a bit fantastical. Before he could unravel the mystery, a clamorous noise from outside the wall interrupted Su Heng's thoughts. Quick, 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 hurry up, stop dawdling. The Zhu family is truly unlucky this time. Over 100 members of the entire family are gone, with only some protectors and servants remaining alive. The Zhu family? Even through the noise and across the courtyard wall, Su-heng could still clearly hear the conversation outside. He was initially stunned, then the somewhat goofy smile of Zuda appeared in his mind. His face turned cold, he pushed open the gate, and began parting the pedestrians blocking his path as he hurried toward the Zhu family's house. By the time Su-heng had crossed 2 streets and reached the Zhu family's gate, there were already quite a few people gathered there. On the open ground in front of the Zhu family's door lay body after body, well over 100, neatly arrayed. The air was filled with an eerie scent of decay. The crowd had gathered, some silently watching, some Zhu family servants looking dazed and foolish, and government officials holding sabers to maintain order by keeping the crowd at bay. 2 elderly coroners were frowning deeply, squatting beside the bodies, inspecting them for possible causes of death. However, judging by the coroners' continuous shaking of their heads and intermittent sighs, the examination was clearly not going well. In the crowd, Su-heng also saw his father, the Su family elder, with a vacant expression and eyes revealing a hint of fear. In Shinigami County, the power of the Su family and the Zhu family was not much different, and their residences were only separated by 2 streets. Yet, over the course of a single night, a grand and wealthy clan had been wiped out to the last. This gave the Su family elder a profound sense of crisis. The thought of the recent water spirit attack at home compounded the old master of the Su family's fear, making his noticeably plump body tremble. If it weren't for the servant by his side supporting his arm, he could hardly stand on his own strength. Su-heng's physique was robust and his height exceeded that of ordinary people, making him stand out from the crowd as if a crane among chickens. The old master also spotted his son. Su-heng had spent a lot of money on martial arts training in the past, which the old master had some minor complaints about. But now, he felt relieved instead. Although Sugui was getting on in years, his personality was not rigid. Realizing that the times were changing and that martial arts could better preserve oneself, he felt thankful. Moreover, his child did indeed have a talent in this area. Even without any understanding of martial arts, Sugui could distinctively feel the changes that had taken place in Su-heng lately. Make way, make way. A line of government officials clad in dark robes and holding officers' blades pushed through the crowd and hurried over to support. The leader was a burly man with a dark complexion. His name was Song Baoi, a head constable at the inspection headquarters. He was quite skilled and had solved many difficult cases, which gave him a small reputation in Shinigami County. But upon seeing the neatly arranged, over 100 corpses, Song Baoi's face also looked extremely ugly. This was beyond his comprehension. Homicide? But there were no obvious external wounds on the bodies, and besides, who could silently kill over 100 people from the Zhu family? Poisoning? The possibility wasn't small. Yet the fact that the bodies had started to decay and give off a foul smell in less than half a day seemed out of the ordinary. Song Baoi remembered the frequent drowning incidents in Shinigami County more than half a month ago. From the looks of the deaths, there indeed seemed to be similarities between the two. Could it be? There really were ghosts and demons in this world as the legends suggested? Despite there being quite a few people around and the sun yet to set, Song Baoi suddenly felt a chill run up his spine at the thought. Yet he had after all experienced life and death, so he shook his head lightly, casting aside those messy thoughts. Have you found anything on the bodies? Song Baoi crouched down next to a coroner, his gaze lingering on the cyanotic, swollen bodies for a moment before he asked in a hushed voice. Seems to be death by poisoning, the coroner answered. What specific poison? Hard to say. The coroner shook his head, however, it's related to the well water. These people died because they drank water from the well. Some of the Zhu family's servants and protectors happened to eat at different times, so they narrowly escaped. The well again, Song Baoi's brow furrowed deeply. Song, Head Constable Song. A trembling voice of an official reached his ears. What is it? Seeing the fearful, trembling demeanor of his subordinate, Song Baoi grew a bit angry, his voice becoming somewhat stern. The bodies seem to be moving. What nonsense are you speaking? Song Baoi flung his long sleeves and stood up. Before his words could even finish, a terrifying, piercing scream immediately followed. The coroner who had just been conversing with Song Baoi's eyes widened as a cyanotic mouth bit down on his neck, and 2 rows of yellow teeth pierced his flesh, with hot blood leaking out from the gaps in the teeth. There was first silence in the crowd, then a burst of panicked screams ensued, and they scattered in all directions, desperately trying to flee. The scene descended into utter chaos. And under the blood-red sunset that resembled blood, those people from the Zhu family who should be dead rose shakily to their feet, casting long, dark streaks on the pale ground with their shadows. Chapter 11, Subduing the Demon. Terrified screams, shoving and cursing, mixed with desperate cries to maintain order, all mingled together, like cold water splashed into a boiling pot of oil. Under the setting sun, the calm was instantly shattered like a mirror. Those who had died were now staggeringly standing back up. Like the zombies and ghosts of mythological tales, their eyes glowed red, their faces hideously twisted, as they attacked everyone present. Some people were pounced upon by the creatures, their flesh torn open, emitting terrified screams. Others were deliberately pushed down by those nearby, as several large feet trampled mercilessly over them, quickly silencing their cries. Songbei was the closest. He wanted to maintain order, but the scene was too chaotic. Everyone had lost their senses, only desperately trying to escape the scene. A swollen, greenish hand suddenly pressed on Songbei's shoulder, the stench of decaying corpse water penetrating his nostrils as if alive. Songbei cursed under his breath, didn't turn around, and instead immediately slapped the rotten chest behind him. Clang! The long sword was drawn, accompanied by a streak of bright blade light. An arm of the rotten corpse was chopped off, but seemingly oblivious, it still roared and lunged at Songbei with its mouth wide open. These creatures' strength was unimaginably great, even with an arm missing. Songbei staggered back several steps in haste. By the time he managed to kick it away, he discovered 3 more rotten corpses closing in. Under the tense emotion, Songbei breathed heavily, sweat breaking out on his forehead. And his accompanying officers were even worse. Seeing more rotten corpses unsteadily rising from the ground, they had no intention of fighting and desperately hid backward, wishing they could shed their uniforms and disappear into the crowd. Sugui stood at the front of the crowd with 2 protectors by his side. The 2 protectors were indeed loyal, not abandoning Sugui even in the face of such strange events. But they had come in a hurry. They had no weapons, only carrying 2 long poles. With a swooshing sound of breaking air, the poles were swung down hard onto the head of a rotten corpse. A crisp crack was heard. It wasn't the skull of the rotten corpse that broke, but the long pole in the protector's hand. These rotten corpses, ordinary people in life, had become enhanced after death. Not only with strength comparable to the top experts of the martial world but also with denser bones. Ordinary attacks were barely effective against them unless armed with sharp weapons to sever their limbs. One protector stood in front of Old Master Su, while the other tried to pull Sugui away to flee. But they failed. The crowd surged past them. Sugui, not young and somewhat corpulent, was slow to move. Despite the protectors dragging, he moved with difficulty and staggered and fell. His expression blank. He watched as 7 or 8 rotten corpses stumbled toward him in the red light of the setting sun, even spotting a semblance of an old friend in some. The family head of the Zhu family, named Zhu Sheng, had been Sugui's competitor for many years. Now turned into a rotten corpse, he did not forget his old rival. This slightly corpulent middle-aged rotten corpse led the way, his jaws wide open with yellowed teeth dragging viscous corpse fluid, roaring fiercely as he lunged at the fallen and immobilized Sugui. The protector's sanity was shattered by fear. They screamed, abandoned Sugui, and turned to flee. Sugui's eyes widened, his mind a complete blank. Bang! Accompanied by a loud explosion, the fist the size of a clay pot turned into a streak of black light and heavily smashed onto the rotting corpse's face. The terrifyingly extreme force burst out violently, and the latter's head exploded like a rotten watermelon, with splintered bones mixed with stinking rotten flesh and blood plasma splattering everywhere. Su Heng swung his large hand, his robust body standing in front of Sugui like a pitch-black iron wall. 2 nearby rotting corpses were grabbed by their heads, and with a forcefully clench of his arms, he smashed them together with a bang, their brain matter and blood plasma shooting up to a height of several meters as the 2 headless bodies, leaking putrid corpse fluids, slumped to the ground limply. You dare to be presumptuous in front of me, playing God? Crackle. Su Heng looked at the walking corpses before him, a faint red glow emanating from his eyes. He shook his head as the sternocleidomastoid, trapezius, and platysma muscles around his neck bulged. From his chin to his chest the muscle fascia turned dark and swollen, tearing his long robe, his face covered with a thick murderous aura. Thick blood splattered on Su Heng's face and chest. This bloody combat was also Su Heng's first experience, but he felt no discomfort. Instead, there was a sense of intense exhilaration. 7 or 8 rotting corpses were drawn towards him. Su Heng leaped into them like a fierce tiger plunging into a flock of sheep, smashing his fists down one after another. Their heads, like rotting watermelons, were smashed to pieces, their bodies directly torn apart, limbs and arms scattering like sprays of foam, with blood flowing everywhere. Not far away, Songbei, a low-ranking official, stood dumbfounded watching the scene unfold before him. He had just killed 3 rotting corpses himself, aware that these monsters were tough to deal with. They were immensely strong, insensitive to pain, and he had to be careful not to get hurt himself. He had to carefully calculate the distance and look for opportunities with each one he faced. Nothing like Su Heng, who was simply swinging his fists wildly, his true chi bursting forth, keeping any monster from getting close. And those brutally exaggerated pitch-black iron fists seemed even more ferocious than any earthly weapon. Any rotting corpse that brushed against them was instantly killed, and if hit directly, they were thoroughly exploded on the spot, blood and flesh flying, not even leaving a whole corpse. Within moments, hundreds of rotting corpses had been slaughtered by Su Heng alone. A slightly clever constable shouted and tried to seize the opportunity to claim credit. However, Su Heng performed a dragon's tail swing, his muscular legs like an axe swung by a deity, blasting through the air with a faint white turbulence, and directly bisecting a rotting corpse behind him, cutting it in half at the waist. The lower body fell to the ground, while the upper half, carrying tremendous kinetic energy, smashed right onto the head of the reckless close-approaching constable. The latter and the rotting corpse's torso collided fully, his face and body covered in fresh blood, his eyes wide with horror, screaming wildly. He scurried outward on all fours, a strong foul smell emanating from his crotch, having been scared into incontinence by the impact. Zuda. Su Heng paid no attention to the thoughts of those around him, merely immersed in his slaughter. Not until he punched through the last rotting corpse's chest, shattering its decayed heart and incidentally snapping its spine. He then took a long breath, returning to his senses from the killing frenzy. The rotting corpse lay limp over Su Heng's powerful arm, facing the familiar face before him. Su Heng sighed again and slowly withdrew his bloodied arm from Zuda's body. Chapter 12 Chukai. Crash. Noisy footsteps resounded as a large group of people carrying torches rushed from afar, completely surrounding the Zhu family's estate. The man leading them was over 7 feet tall with a somber face and 2 mustaches at the corners of his mouth, giving off a particularly unfriendly aura. He looked at the blood-drenched scene in front of him, resembling hell itself, and involuntarily twitched his eyebrows. Glancing around, his gaze first lingered on Su Heng's towering figure, and then fell on Song Daoi standing nearby. Song Daoi, tell this county magistrate what exactly has happened here. The county magistrate was an official in charge of judicial affairs and handling cases. In grassroots units like Shinigami County, his power was second only to the prefect. The county magistrate of Shinigami County was named Chukai, and, true to his name, he sought office merely to amass wealth. When handling cases, he didn't bother with the causes, and immediately arrested both the complainant and the accused, indiscriminately whipping them 50 times each. After that, he would further proceed depending on the amount of fine paid for atonement. Such practices naturally led to numerous wrongful convictions, but because Chukai was exceedingly greedy, even wealthy families felt the pinch after being extorted. Over time, Shinigami County maintained decent public order, with fewer incidents of bullying and oppression. Song Daoi approached Chukai, and although he didn't like the man, he still bowed respectfully due to their social difference and reported everything that had happened in detail. Dead and decaying bodies stood up and attacked you? After hearing this, Chukai couldn't help laughing out loud, scoffing as he said, "Do you think this county magistrate is a fool to believe such ghost stories? I think it's clear that someone had a conflict with the Zhu family, coveted their property, and committed murder in public, leading to the scene before us. Master Chu, it really is as Daoi said." Sugui, struggling to stand up with the help of 2 protectors, blacked out upon hearing this. He quickly approached Chukai, grabbed his arm, and subtly slipped an expensive jade pendant into Chukai's hand. Chukai reached out to feel it. The touch was smooth, the carvings exquisite, he knew it was a high-quality item. Yet just this priceless jade pendant was not enough to resolve the current crisis. He surmised that the affair was likely unrelated to the Su family, but it didn't matter. Since a member of the Su family was present at the crime scene, it was only natural to extort a sum of money. The county magistrate must also enforce justice impartially. Naturally, I cannot take your word for it alone, Chukai coughed twice and coldly said. Whether it is true or not, first take the people back to the Yamen and then decide. Sugui's face paled. The Yamen was a place easy to enter but difficult to leave. It wasn't the money he was worried about but his son, and with Su Heng's explosive temper, if a conflict arose inside, things could become even more troublesome and embarrassing. Chukai, however, did not care and waved his hand, signaling his attendants to arrest the suspects. Rip. Su Heng tore a piece of cloth from the body and slowly wiped the blood off his own body and arms. Hearing the commotion, he turned around and cast a cold glance. The attendants, ready to obey the order, suddenly found themselves rooted to the spot, hesitating to move recklessly. Chukai's brow furrowed slightly, irritation showing on his face. He looked up, locking eyes with Su Heng. The unyielding murderous aura came at him like a scarlet bolt of lightning, hitting him squarely. Chukai suddenly felt his breath catch, trembling with fear. In his youth, during his travels, he had encountered a fierce tiger, over 10 feet long, And even at a distance of 100 meters, flanked by several strong guards, a mere glance from the tiger had terrified Chukai enough to lose sleep for days, visibly wearing him down. And the murderous aura of the man before him, Su-heng. It was 100-fold, 1,000-fold more ferocious than that of the tiger he had encountered more than 20 years ago. He was going to die. A strong premonition arose in Chukai's heart. It could be within the next few minutes, perhaps at the next breath, the next blink of an eye. Rules may govern people, but they cannot control demons, let alone those creatures even more fierce and terrifying than demons. Master Chu, please think thrice, Sugui pleaded with a mourning face, stuffing several heavy gold ingots into Chukai's hands. There is great terror between life and death. Chukai shuddered, breaking free from the frightful aura. He grabbed Sugui's hand and stuffed back the gold ingots, including the jade pendant from before. Sugui thought the price he paid was not enough, but then, in the red glow of the torch, he saw Chukai's always sinister face actually brimming with a smile. Then, Chukai spread his arms wide and gave Sugui a solid hug. Ha ha ha, brother Su, what are you doing? Chukai chuckled, holding Sugui's hand. I was confused just now. Clearly, your son is exceptional in martial arts, helping the government to suppress demons, settling chaos, and should be rewarded. It's just that it's getting late today, and the hour is no longer early. I will surely visit another day. Chukai bowed to Sugui and left, surrounded by a group of men who stayed behind to clean up the blood at the scene, while the rest hurried off with their torches. Sugui stood there dumbfounded, while Su-heng silently appeared behind him. Let's go home too, said Su-heng, watching Chukai's departing figure, his voice unusually calm. Oh, Sugui nodded subconsciously. He then saw Su-heng already walking ahead of him. He waved his sleeves to shake off the dust that had settled on him and then ran to catch up with Su-heng, rushing towards the Su family's residence. Back at home, Su-heng had the servants heat water for a bath and then changed into fresh clothes. He looked at the bright moon hanging in the night sky, with willows swaying, their slender branches outlining the extent of the evening breeze, feeling a coolness throughout his body. He reflected on the events that had happened in the evening. If Chukai had been stubborn, and had chosen to continue the capture, what would he have done? Without a doubt, Chukai would have died. And then? The officers he had brought would have died too. If the conflict had escalated, many more in Shinigami County would have died. Many people, everyone, would have to die. He knew it was wrong, but the sensation of slaughter was truly intoxicating. Before emotions of joy, anger, sorrow, or pleasure are expressed, it's called balance, and when expressed properly within the bounds, it's called harmony. To achieve balance and harmony is where heaven and earth are established, where all things are nurtured. Outside the window, under the bright moonlight, Su-heng's clear voice reading aloud could be heard. Su-heng was momentarily distracted. He returned to reality from the dark desires. He tightened his clothes and then pushed open the wooden door, walking out into the frost-filled courtyard. Chapter 13 The Megalith. Leaving the separate residence, they skirted a long courtyard wall, ducked through a stone archway, and arrived at the kitchen yard, where the grunts of exertion rang out within the courtyard. They stopped in their tracks and fixed their gaze. Over a dozen protectors were gathered around the well, each shouldering a wooden ladder. One end of the ladder lay flat on the ground, while the other rested against the well's edge. A massive stone lay atop the ladder, as big as a millstone. More than a dozen men were jointly trying to lift the ladder, hoping to roll the stone onto the well to block it off. Sugui was also there, waving his arms and shouting loudly for the protectors to exert their strength together. As the protectors exerted force, the ladder was gradually raised. The end that had been on the ground slowly lifted, hovering in the air, and continued to rise. The stone began to roll, but before it could fall into the well, the ladder seemed overwhelmed and creaked ominously. Crack! 2 wooden beams snapped in the middle. The stone, now without support, fell downwards, heading straight for the foot of a nearby protector. The event happened too swiftly, the protector hadn't the time to react. The others, however, screamed in terror. With a stone, weighing thousands of pounds, plummeting down, one could only imagine the consequences. That leg was most likely beyond saving, not to mention the uncertainty of how to live out the rest of his life. But the sound of bones and flesh being smashed into pulp did not arise. In the middle of the courtyard, a shadow flashed by, and Su-heng appeared amongst the crowd. He extended one arm forward in a casual manner, almost without any evidence of effort, yet the thousands of pounds heavy stone hung steadily in midair, while the other end rested on the well's rim. Young master. The unlucky protector, his legs weak from fright, sat down hard on the ground. Only then did he realize what had happened and repeatedly expressed his gratitude. Thank you, second young master, thank you for saving my life. You all step back, Su-heng ordered. The other protectors hastily made way, while Sugui, a bit nervously, whispered a reminder, be careful. Su Heng nodded. His arms stretched out, his two large hands each grasping a side of the stone. His legs spread apart, his center of gravity sinking slightly with each inhale and exhale, his arm muscles tensed. With a low grunt, he lifted the stone, shifted its position, and set it steadily upon the well, perfectly sealing the opening. The surrounding protectors and servants stared with wide eyes, too astonished to speak. They knew their young master practiced martial arts. But they had not expected him to be this ferocious. The gigantic stone that took 10 men using tools to barely lift weighed thousands of pounds. Yet Su Heng had lifted it on his own without any sign of strain. This kind of strength had already surpassed human limits, even a being of iron sinews and diamond hardness would not appear otherwise. Due to the incident that occurred at the Zhu family, you've decided to seal off the well, Su Heng said, dusting off his hands as he looked towards his father. Su Gui nodded. It is indeed the right thing to do, Su Heng commented in surprise, but what about the water for daily use? There are quite a few people in the residence, and water is a big necessity. We plan to fetch water from the Nine-Bend River outside the city. One of the protectors eagerly replied, using a horse carriage, a round trip only takes about an hour. It's somewhat troublesome, but it's safe. That's fine then, but it will be hard on you all. Su Heng nodded slightly. The world is becoming increasingly chaotic. The person in charge of this task may collect an extra allowance at the accounting office. Young Master Su is generous, the protectors said, their faces lighting up with excitement. However, this is not a long-term solution. Su Heng looked up at Su Gui. Do you have any other plans? I won't hide it from you. I just had a discussion with the heads of a few other major families, as well as some officials from the county Aizen. Su Gui gathered his sleeves, his expression serious. Did you come up with any solutions? Su Heng asked curiously. We plan to hire someone to exorcise the demons, said Su Gui, his face stern. Su Heng said with a loss for words, although our family has plenty of money, there's no need to waste it like this. Moreover, didn't you spend quite a bit of silver to invite the mages from Dinglan Temple to perform rites in our residence half a month ago? Yet, the incidents of the water ghost harming people still occurred, and it was completely useless. At least it didn't happen in our family, right? Su Gui, feeling his authority as family head dwindling by the day, couldn't help but retort in a soft voice. Moreover, this time is different from before, Su Gui explained. These two grandmasters are from King Mao Mountain. Do you understand King Mao Mountain? It's an ancient legacy that predates the founding of the Great Shu dynasty. These two masters are not only famous grandmasters on the Jiang, but they indeed have a record of demon slaying. They've assisted the government in dealing with many tough and bizarre cases and are quite renowned in Jiangsu. Backed by the official endorsement? Su Heng's face showed surprise. Su Gui nodded. The county Aizen facilitated the connection, and we several major families contributed the funds. That does lend some credibility, Su Heng sighed. I hope they can solve this trouble quickly. Su Heng had reviewed numerous records. While those accounts were a mix of truth and falsehoods, one thing could be confirmed. Demons had not made their first appearance on the land of the Great Shu dynasty, and since such incidents had occurred in the past, it was normal for methods to deal with them to emerge and even to form unique legacies. King Mao Mountain might just be one of the ancient sects capable of combating demons in the Jiang. I wonder what kind of methods these Taoist priests have. With this thought, a bit of curiosity sprang up in Su Heng's mind. King Mao Mountain was not far from Chinking County. At a distance of about 700 or 800 li, even if they encountered any mishaps on the way, an hour's time would be enough to make the journey. After chatting a few more words with Su Gui and eating something, Su Heng returned to his own courtyard. By then, it had grown dark. Su Sheng had stopped studying and, after washing up, went to rest and sleep. A figure stood silently waiting in the courtyard. It was Su Heng's driver, Li Si. Have you taken care of the matter I entrusted to you? Su Heng lowered his voice to avoid waking his already sleeping younger brother. There are results, young master, Li Si said. In this period, a significant factor in Su Heng's rapid accumulation of attribute points was the special meat. However, after purchasing it several times, the old farmer who sold the special meat on the black market mysteriously disappeared without a trace. Su Heng had sent Li Si to investigate, and now he was reporting the results to him. We searched around and found the village where the old farmer lived in a valley of Hueco Mountain, a remote place cut off from the world, but the local customs were quite simple. We asked the villagers and located the old farmer's residence. Unfortunately, by the time we got there, he was already gone. Perhaps he had saved enough money and moved away from the village with his family. Although we lost this clue, we didn't give up and continued to inquire about the special meat in the village. At this point, Li Si's expression turned somewhat odd. Chapter 14, Black Sham. Did you encounter anything strange? Seeing Li Si's expression, Su Heng's heart tightened, and he couldn't help but ask in a low voice. We found the meat of Tai Sui, it grows from the ground. Li Si frowned and said, but we heard some unsettling rumors from the villagers. Let's hear them. At first, the villagers discovered Tai Sui growing in the ground. Many people dug it up and took it home to eat. What's more, no matter how much was taken out, it would grow back the next day. The villagers of Hyuga Mountain thought it was a treasure bestowed by heaven. However, they soon ran into problems. Those who had eaten the meat of Tai Sui starved to death, Li Si said. Starved to death? Su Heng couldn't believe it. Li Si nodded. The villagers say, after eating the meat of Tai Sui, they couldn't eat anything else. But this thing is peculiar. The more you eat, the more rapidly your body becomes emaciated, and by the time of death, only skin and bones remain. It's as if the nutrients of their bodies were consumed by the meat of Tai Sui, Su Heng said softly. Exactly, Li Si agreed. Li Si nodded vehemently, his expression one of lingering fear. I've seen the corpses of those dead villagers. The skeleton of an adult looked like that of a 7 or 8-year-old child. A misshapen skeleton covered with a layer of withered, darkened skin. I've faced many dangers in my time, but I was still somewhat frightened when I first saw that scene. The old farmer on the black market had no good intentions, Su Heng remarked softly. Master. Li Si looked at Su Heng with a worried expression. Su Heng knew what he was thinking, shrugged his shoulders, and turned to look directly into Li Si's eyes. Do you think I look like there's something wrong with me now? Li Si shook his head. There you have it, Su Heng said softly. Here's what we'll do, offer the villagers some silver tael or food in exchange for the Tai Sui meat. Despite the unsavory rumors, I need that stuff. I'll leave this matter in your hands. No problem, Li Si nodded. Although the story sounded bizarre, as long as the meat of Tai Sui wasn't consumed, there shouldn't be any major issues. The meat of Tai Sui had been appearing in Hyuga Mountain for several months, and those villagers were still living there healthily. Thus, after accepting this task, Li Si himself wasn't too fearful. More and more peculiar things are happening in the world, Su Heng said quietly, watching Li Si's hastily departing figure. Ever since consuming the flesh of the water ghost, Su Heng had realized his body was extraordinary. His attribute panel gave him a formidable ability. It made him fearless of most curses and corpse poisons. However, he couldn't afford to be careless. The world was changing, and to go further, he must remain cautious. And so, half a month swiftly passed. The climate was gradually warming up, but the people of Chinking County were not happy about the arrival of warmer weather. A strange and oppressive haze covered the entire city, and the vibrant life of spring had disappeared. Water ghost attacks on residents were still happening, and with increasing frequency. Even though the county government tried to hide the news, fear was uncontrollably spreading, gradually leading to a loss of order. Cases of violence, harm, and robbery were occurring frequently. In just a short period of less than half a month, hundreds of gangs emerged in Chinking County. Among those gangs, the ones with the most members and the best equipment, who were also the most audacious, even dared to attack officials and people from the 3 major families. Some people in Chinking County wanted to leave. But it was difficult. Chinking County is located in a valley, and to reach the outside world, one had to cross Hyuga Mountain. There is a highway in Hyuga Mountain, and it was normally fine to travel on. But recently, for some unknown reason, fog had started to rise in the mountains, and there were frequent reports of wild animals attacking travelers. The roads were blocked, making Chinking County feel like a huge cage. This also led to an increasingly oppressive and restless atmosphere in the city. Boom. The weather was gloomy, with dark clouds rolling. A thunderclap sounded in the distant sky, and several black crows with red eyes flapped their wings, swooping over the eaves. Under the eave, Su Heng slowly opened his eyes. Su Heng, height, 1.90 meters, weight, 265 pounds, stage, vein mutation 55%, cultivation technique, pure yang skill level 8, special effect, pure yang true chi, black evil technique, beginner, attribute points, 30, because he had obtained a large amount of genial beast meat from Hyuga Mountain, his rate of attribute point increase had accelerated compared to the past. Besides that, the progress of his vein mutation had advanced from 35 to 55 points. As for cultivation techniques, even with 30 attribute points, the pure yang skill still could not advance to the next stage, hitting a threshold. Su Heng had a guess that this technique was almost fully cultivated to its peak by him, and although it was possible to break through further, it would require a large number of attribute points. As for deciding what to do, Su Heng hadn't made up his mind yet. However, during this time, Su Heng had managed to cultivate the black evil technique among the other 2 internal cultivation techniques to the beginner level. A plus sign faintly appeared behind the black evil technique. First, continue to accumulate attribute points. If I still can't advance the pure yang skill at 50 attribute points, then I'll switch to cultivating the black evil technique and the red poison technique. Su Heng briefly thought it over and soon had a rough plan. With his cultivation of the black evil technique, Su Heng gained more understanding about the vein mutation. Different cultivation techniques correspond to different veins. For instance, the veins corresponding to the pure yang skill are in the contours of the body, while those of the black evil technique involve the arms and throat. If continuing with this line of thought, a single technique could not bring Su Heng's vein mutation to 100%. To bring his physique to the ultimate level, he had to assimilate and master the strengths of various schools. This was not an easy task. Fortunately, his talent was exceptional, and he also had the support of the attribute panel. Reaching this stage was not difficult and, evidently, would not take too long. Yet, Su Heng had always been exploring on his own since he began his cultivation. He felt that he still lacked the complete cultivation system, which could cause him to take many detours. Why haven't those two grandmasters from King Mao Mountain arrived yet? Su Heng thought of the grandmasters from King Mao Mountain whom Su Gui had once mentioned. Perhaps they had the heritage in this area. However, he didn't know what accident they might have encountered on the road. The journey from King Mao Mountain to Chengqing County only took about 7 or 8 days, yet it had already been half a month, and there was still no news from the two grandmasters. Chapter 15 Idiot Knock, knock, knock. The sound of knocking from outside interrupted Su Heng's thoughts. Creak. The old door swung open. On the deserted street outside stood a lean figure, dark as iron. Li Si? Su Heng raised an eyebrow. What brings you here? Second young master. Li Si bowed and spoke bluntly. Master Su has something urgent to discuss with you. If he sent you personally, it must be quite urgent. Su Heng nodded immediately. Then let's not keep him waiting and head over right now. The courtyard where he currently resided was located in Jiu Jiefeng, not far from the Su family estate, although it required passing through a narrow alleyway. The alley was flanked by low yellow mud walls. The houses inside the walls were empty. Whether they had moved out or some mishap had occurred was unclear. The light was dim, the air was moist, and walking on the ground gave a gritty feeling. The creaking sounds could still be heard. On regular days when Su Heng passed through this alley, he could also detect the smell of dry latrine feces. But now, as the residents on both sides of the alley moved away, that smell gradually vanished, taking away much of the scent of life with it. Just as they were about to cross the alley and step onto Jinyangfeng Street, Su Heng suddenly stopped, causing Li Si, who was following behind, to almost bump into him. Second young master? Li Si looked up, his face filled with confusion. Footsteps rushed towards them, quickly changing Li Si's confusion into solemnity. It was a group of brawny men, wearing tattered wraps and holding rusty cleavers, blocking their path. These are members of the Black Snake Gang. Li Si eyed the leader of the group, a tall figure with a rough black snake tattoo on the left side of his face. Li Si's face showed apprehension. This man is called Mojiao, a felon. Somehow he escaped from prison and founded the Black Snake Gang with a group of criminals. They not only defeated the officers sent to arrest them but also chopped the leading officer into mincemeat alive. So, they want to rob us? Su Heng's gaze lingered briefly on the gang, then he cracked a smile, a slowly creeping genial expression appearing on his face. You've come to shake me down? Boss, a subordinate next to Mojiao, his face marked with fear, whispered, Su Heng, the second son of the Su family, is said to be tough to deal with. Should we back off first? What's there to fear? Mojiao was unconcerned. He was indeed robust, nearly 185 centimeters tall, and only a little shorter than Su Heng. His face, marred by numerous life-threatening incidents, wore a defiant expression. The Su family is a significant household in Chengqing County. Capturing Su Heng could mean a ransom of whatever amount we wish. Brothers, to live a life of luxury, it's all or nothing now. Are you cowards at this moment? His subordinate swallowed a gulp of spit and slowly clenched the machete in his hand. Hey hey. Mojiao smiled, clicking his tongue twice, his eyes challengingly fixed on Su Heng. Young Master Su, shall we take a walk with us? And if I refuse? Su Heng asked with interest. Then we'll have to resort to more drastic measures, Mojiao answered with a cold laugh. Evil is not to be feared in this world, but stupidity is, Su Heng sighed, the smile fading from his face. What do you mean by that? What do I mean? Su Heng's eyes flashed red as he looked at the group as if they were corpses. You dare to disturb the dragon's lair right under heaven. You, Mojiao's face changed drastically, and he swung his knife towards Su Heng's chest. However, Su Heng's heavy punch was faster, bringing with it a sharp, piercing sound. The iron fist tore through the air, turning into a black light and heavily striking Mojiao's face. If the time were slowed down by 10 times, one could see his face, tattooed with a black tattoo, trembling uncontrollably from the growing air pressure even before it made contact with the iron fist. His face squeezed and deformed, and when his head burst open, the other half of his face still had a frozen expression of fright and pain. Pukai. Amidst the dull and horrifying sound, fragments of skull and brain splattered, covering every corner within a radius of more than 10 meters. The courage that other members of the Black Snake Gang had barely mustered was immediately obliterated. They fell to the ground screaming. It was only after Su Heng took another step forward that they belatedly reacted, scrambling towards the distance on all fours, abandoning even their rusty machetes, tossing them aside carelessly. "Let's go." Su Heng took a deep breath, and the red light in his eyes gradually disappeared. Li Si lowered his head to see an eyeball that had fallen at his feet. Although he had seen Su Heng practice martial arts, this was the first time he had seen Su Heng actually kill someone. This type of terrifying and exaggerated violence, akin to that of a monstrous beast, was simply dreadful. It took Li Si a moment to recover from the shock. He looked up, only to see Su Heng had already walked far away, about to disappear around the corner of the street. Li Si shook his head and quickly gathered his scattered thoughts, jogging to catch up with Su Heng. "Did you just get into a fight with someone?" Sugui asked, looking at the crimson blood stains on Su Heng, frowning with concern on his chubby face. "Ran into a group of fools," Su Heng said calmly. "What did you want to talk about?" "The public security in Chinking County is getting worse. The Zhu family's residence was attacked a few days ago," Sugui said. "Thankfully, I heeded your advice to buy martial arts texts, store up food in advance, and recruit protectors. Only then could the vast Zhu family's assets remain stable. And you?" Sugui took a sip of tea and sighed again. "Your father knows you have an extraordinary talent in martial arts, but you should restrain yourself a bit, avoid conflict with others. The Zhu family doesn't lack money. When possible, let things slide, otherwise, with your overly flamboyant personality, you'll suffer later." "Stick to the point," Su Heng interrupted Sugui's nagging, feeling somewhat headache. "Right, the business." Sugui, flustered, put down his teacup. "You know about Hueco Mountain, right? The base of the mountain is Jiayuk River. To avoid poisoning the well water, we send people twice a day to fetch water from Jiayuk River. Normally, the protector who fetches the water should have returned an hour ago, but now there's no sign of them. There's been fog in Hueco Mountain lately, and also incidents of wild animals harming people." Although Su Heng was immersed in practicing martial arts, he somewhat understood what was happening in the outside world. "You suspect that the water fetchers encountered some misfortune in Hueco Mountain?" "That's indeed possible," Su Heng said. "Has someone been sent to look for them?" "Yes," Sugui nodded, "and then that group also disappeared." This could be a bit tricky. Su Heng's brows furrowed. The protectors had been traveling to and from Hueco Mountain for over half a month and were unlikely to get lost in the fog, so they probably encountered something bad. Wild animals harming people? The chances are more likely it's the work of demons. Chapter 16, The Green Spear. "I'll go there myself," Su Heng decided after a moment of thought. "You?" Sugui hesitated a little. "That might not be a good idea. What if you encounter danger?" "Staying here is dangerous as well," Su Heng said. "The well is contaminated, and I need to check on Hueco Mountain even without this matter. Besides, anyone else going would be a waste of effort." Since he started practicing martial arts, Su Heng's actions had become more resolute. In front of his own son, Sugui felt increasingly inadequate. "Should we send a couple of men with you for support?" Sugui suggested. "No need," Su Heng shook his head. "The difference in our abilities is too great. In reality, if he did encounter a dangerous situation, even having two protectors with him would only be a burden. On the other hand, Su Heng could make the trip much faster by himself." "Well, all right then," Sugui sighed with a sense of resignation. This world. He felt increasingly alienated and indecisive when faced with issues. Unbeknownst to him, Su Heng had become the backbone of the large family, the true decision-maker. "I'll leave now." Not wanting to waste any time, Su Heng gave a few instructions and then pushed the door open to leave. He strode forward vigorously, causing the ornamental trees planted in the courtyard to sway and rustle. In the blink of an eye, Su Heng's figure had vanished from Sugui's sight. The latter looked up to see a gloomy sky, with leaden clouds hanging low and the dull sound of thunder rolling in from the plains outside the city, signifying impending rain. Screech. A bird with a white head and black feathers soared, circling over the city's windward side. Su Heng paused in his steps. He was in a slum area near the western city wall of Chinking County, known as Mouse Alley. It was a place of mixed repute, with a most deplorable environment. The alley, filled with trash and yellow dust, was devoid of light, flanked by dark, shabby houses. Old clothes, patched aplenty, hung from bamboo poles outside the homes, with just a slight difference in color between those of men and women. There was also a decrepit stool in front of the door. Not far away, a pile of dog excrement had been stepped on and smeared. Su-heng heard coughing from the alley and the creaking of wheels grinding against the ground. In the darkness, a single-wheeled cart was slowly pushed out of the alley. The cart bore 3 bodies carelessly piled together, and the person pushing it had a gray cloth over his face, though his eyes still looked sickly. Su-heng stepped aside to clear the way. His eyes narrowed as he peered deep into the alley. Within the darkness, shadows stood silently, their bodies emaciated, their faces numb, their skin and faces covered with sores caused by pollution. Whether it was an illusion or not, Su-heng felt as if he saw a strange yellow light in their eyes. So many people, all infected by the plague. He remembered the incident not long ago with a decaying corpse attacking people at the Zhu family's doorstep. Looking at these lower-class citizens whose conditions were clearly not right, even someone as strong as Su-heng couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Leaving Qingqing County, he followed the official road northward. When he reached a giant banyan tree, he turned left onto a mountain path. Moving forward, he would arrive at the Nine Windings River, where the protectors usually fetched water. Low shrubs grew on either side of the road, dotted with dark red fruits. These fruits were called earth enigma berries, said to be a kind of traditional medicine. As for their specific medicinal effects, Su-heng wasn't sure. But he did remember that after reading these fruits, one's mouth would turn pitch black, impossible to wipe clean. Continuing forward, he rounded a steep cliff. Standing on a large rock, Su-heng soon heard the babble of water from a distance. Jiayuk River, located north of Qingqing County, flows from west to east throughout the year without interruption. As children, Su-heng, Su-sheng, and Su-li would often come here to fish and picnic under the accompaniment of their family's protectors. However, in spring, due to the melting ice and snow on the mountain, the river's flow would increase, making it somewhat murky. These fragmented memories slowly surfaced, but Su-heng did not act rashly. Mist had begun to rise in the woods. The turbid, dark waters of the river flowed from west to east, while a silk-like white fog enveloped the surface of the river, silently moving west, creating an extremely eerie scene. The icy fog flowed over the surging water surface, over the abandoned, broken docks of Jiayuk River, over the low shrubs and rocks in the woods, and finally over Su-heng's ankles. A bone-chilling cold penetrated his marrow, causing Su-heng's muscles to tense as the firelight of his true chi circulation flickered in his eyes. This fog was not normal, it not only blocked his sight but also made the sound of the Jiayuk River grow increasingly distant. Soon, Su-heng saw nothing but a white expanse, with only the nearby rocks and woods within a 3-meter radius visible. Flap flap. An unusual noise came from above, and the branches trembled lightly. Su-heng looked up to see a brown owl perched on a tree trunk, tilting its head and curiously peering at him. He withdrew his gaze. With black cloth shoes stepping on the ground, Su-heng continued forward. Even though his vision and hearing were impaired, Su-heng's sense of smell remained functional. Another benefit from his attribute panel, he was extremely sensitive to the scent that demons exude. As long as a demon appeared near him, Su-heng would certainly notice. But before he sensed the presence of a demon, another scent had already made its way into Su-heng's nostrils. It was an old, decayed, spoiled blood smell. The protectors who came to Jiayuk River to fetch water? This thought flashed through Su-heng's mind, but he soon felt it was incorrect. The blood scent was not fresh. Mixed with soil, damp and decaying, it was clear that someone had died some time ago, their body pecked at by wild beasts and birds, leaving just scant traces of freshness behind. Su-heng hastened towards the direction from which the scent of blood came. Pushing through the bushes in front of him, he entered the forest and quickly arrived at the destination. On the clearing ground, 2 sets of remains lay one in front of the other, with their heads separated from their bodies, the flesh consumed cleanly, while the rotten heads had fat white maggots wriggling in and out of the dark eye sockets. The blasted earth, broken and fallen trees, the upturned and torn shrubs. There were traces of fierce combat all around. Su-heng's nose twitched slightly. Beneath the scent of rotting human blood, there was another faint scent with a light fragrance of blood. That scent did not belong to humans or beasts, it could only come from a demon. And such an invigorating fragrance indicated that its owner was certainly not to be underestimated. Suppressing his nausea, Su-heng carefully turned over the corpses. Underneath the skeletal remains and shattered clothing, Su-heng found a wooden token in the blood-soaked soil. He held the token in his hand and took a closer look. Hiss. Su-heng's heart tightened, and his pupils contracted sharply. On the back of the token, the ancient characters for green thatch were engraved. Chapter 17, The Mist Demon King Mel Mountain. Su-heng's eyebrows twitched suddenly. These are the 2 Grandmasters from King Mel Mountain, no wonder they haven't arrived yet, they had already encountered disaster on their way. He had originally planned to learn something from these 2 Grandmasters. Now it seems. Su-heng was shocked, and a bit speechless as well, He tried to deduce the events that had occurred here. The two grandmasters from King Mao Mountain were on their way, passed by Hyuga Mountain, only to be ambushed by demons and brutally killed. However, given the bloody scent left at the scene, the two grandmasters from King Mao Mountain were not undeserving of their reputation. At the very least, before they died, they managed to injure the mysterious demon of Hyuga Mountain. As for how serious the wounds were on the demon, it was hard to say. Su Heng placed the token aside and picked up a torn cloth package from the ground. Regrettably, it contained only some spare clothing, indiscernible trinkets, as well as some metal-throwing weapons, fragments of silver tail, and so on. As for the cultivation techniques that Su Heng longed for, there were none inside. Indeed, after all, no one would carry two secret manuals with them while wandering the Jianghu. Despite having anticipated this, Su Heng still felt a bit disappointed. He sorted through the items in the package, grouped them to study later, perhaps they would yield some fruit. After finishing these tasks, he looked up. The mist around him grew thicker, so dense it had reached the point where one could barely see their own hand before them. There wasn't a single sound in the environment around him. The white expanse was eerily quiet, driving one to madness, yet the unique scent of the demon became even more pronounced. It was coming. A sense of alarm rose in Su Heng's heart. The demon hidden in the mist had killed the two grandmasters from King Mao Mountain. This demon was very strong. At least 10 times stronger than the water ghost he had encountered before, not at the same level at all. It lurked in the mist, attacking passers-by, and he was being targeted as the next victim. The situation was very dangerous. Su Heng's breathing was heavy. The battle had not yet begun, but a strong sense of warning was already stimulating his body. It was as if there were multiple silver needles, floating above his skin, emitting a faint and cold light. Ever since he began practicing martial arts, this was the first time Su Heng had encountered such a situation. Pure yang skill silently circulated, red muscle fibers surfaced on his skin, crisscrossing, forming beautiful corona patterns. The scorching yang extreme true chi roared through his veins, further enhancing his senses. Flames ignited in Su Heng's pupils, his piercing gaze cut through the mist. In the forest, 2 golden lanterns lit up. Those were the eyes of the demon in the mist. Kill it. It was very weak now, with its wounds not yet fully healed. Kill it, then devour its flesh and blood, plunder its talents, and he would certainly undergo a transformation. The tangy scent of the demon began to seep into Su Heng's nostrils. His mouth secreted saliva, his stomach churned, his muscles tensed like iron chains, storing power. Every cell in his body was cheering, as if a terrifying demon army was roaring, sending to his brain the craving for slaughter. In the leaden sky, large raindrops fell, splashing on Su Heng's arms. The rain was evaporated by the ferocious temperature of his body, making a noise, turning into a handful of dissipating mist. Then came the second drop, the third drop. More and more rain started to fall, pouring like a torrential shower, the sound of which resounded from all around. Boom! The muffled thunder exploded, echoing between the valleys. It had started to rain. The mysterious white fog that obscured the line of sight began to dissipate, and the molten gold pupils in the jungle vanished without trace. The demon had left. Su Heng inwardly sighed in regret. His taut muscles relaxed as he slowly rose to his feet, only then noticing the greasy sweat that coated his body. The sweat that seeped from his pores mixed with the rain that fell from the sky. Su Heng's clothes were completely soaked, giving him a feeling of wet, greasy sluggishness. Crack! He reached out and tore open his collar a little. His robust chest was exposed, and droplets of water clung to his bronze skin. Su Heng realized that without knowing it, he had come to the slope at the foot of Hyuga Mountain, with the 9 Twists River to the north and Chengking County to the south. Standing at a high place, he could see most of Chengking County in his field of view. The gray, ancient city walls were covered with green moss and blanketed by a layer of lead-gray rain clouds. Raindrops fell, and bundles of dark yellow smoke rose above the city. Smoke, water demons, plague, decaying corpses. Su Heng's brow furrowed slightly as he remembered the numb scene he saw when he left Chengking County, and his heart gave a sudden thud. In the year 116 of the Great Zhu, water demons appeared in Lianshan City. The rain poured down for 10 days without cessation, plague spread, people bit and tore at each other, and over 100,000 of the city's residents were dead or injured. Water can spread the plague. Those infected by the plague will go mad, gaining immense strength and biting each other. Chengking County is in trouble. Amidst the rain, Su Heng slowly opened his eyes, his forehead throbbing with 2 thick, twisted veins. It's raining, and that water demon is starting to move. Water demon. Good, it's time for a showdown. Since the people from King Mao Mountain have been killed, let me do it. As long as it dares to show itself, it must die. However, Su Heng opened the attribute panel, focusing his attention on the black evil technique. Add point. Add point. Add point. Black evil technique elevated to the breakthrough realm, detected and overlapping with pure yang skill. Do you choose to merge the cultivation techniques? Confirm. Merging in progress. Merging. Merging complete. Yang pole black evil skill, special effects, Yang extreme true chi, evil breaking roar. The scorching Yang extreme true chi flowed through his abnormally large veins, evaporating a large amount of rain, forming a mist. Roar. A non-human roar came through the mist. The trees on both sides violently trembled, splashing water everywhere, and flocks of birds took to the sky with flapping wings. This. What the hell is going on? In the Su family estate. Amidst the heavy rain, Sugui stood under a straw hat, his face deathly pale, his whole body trembling uncontrollably from excessive fright, stuttering in his speech. Have all these people gone mad? Bang. Bang. The wooden gate shook violently from the impact, and even though two strong protectors were bracing it with wooden stakes in front, it was to no avail as the sound of collision continued. The wooden gate shook fiercely. Cracks appeared on the middle wooden bolt as thick as an adult's thigh, and dust fell from the beams above. Crack. With a crisp sound, the wooden bolt broke. The vermilion gate collapsed, and like a tide of black water, the frenzied, rotting corpses flooded in from the outside streets. Their faces were numb and expressionless, their bodies bloated. The exposed skin was covered with dark yellow, rotting sores, and their mouths secreted thick saliva. Upon seeing Sugui and the others, their eyes flashed with a greedy red light. Chapter 18, Subduing the Demon Quick. Hurry up and go. Sugui's eyes widened as he felt his teeth start to ache in waves. He turned to leave the scene, but due to overwhelming fear, his legs wouldn't obey, and after staggering a few steps, he nearly fell into the muddy puddles. The shrill scream erupted. It was the two protectors who had been bracing the door that were pushed down. 7 or 8 blood-smeared mouths gnawed at their flesh, their struggles grew fierce, but their screams became weaker and weaker. The infected were closing in. Sugui could smell the sour, putrid scent emanating from them. He took one step back, then a second, and by the third step, he was leaning against the courtyard wall. Sugui gave up struggling, feeling as if all his strength was drained in an instant. His eyes widened as he slowly collapsed in the corner of the wall, waiting for death to come. Bang! Another loud noise shook the air. The sound came from the high courtyard wall adjacent to the street, accompanied by a violent trembling of the entire wall. Bang! The noise came again. This time it was even more violent, and cracks appeared all over the wall. Everyone around widened their eyes in terror, uncertain of what dreadful monster was coming that not even the 3-meter-high wall could withstand. Bang! Then, the third thunderous noise followed. The wall was pushed down by an unimaginable massive force, and countless bricks and tiles flew down in a clatter. Over 10 decaying corpses within the courtyard were instantly buried under the rubble, and as dust rose through the curtain of rain, a tall, dark figure emerged. Hiss. Heavy breathing mixed with billowing steam. A pair of eyes glowed red, and the tall, nearing 2-meter stature was imposing. Enhanced Yang extreme true chi surged through his body, Su Heng's physique swelled, and his skin was traced with thick, chain-like black veins that spread across his chest and arms. The veins even climbed up his neck and spread across his face, giving him a somewhat demonic appearance. The temperature of his skin rose rapidly as the true chi circulated, evaporating the falling raindrops into mist before they could touch the ground. Mist swirled and danced around Su Heng like burning flames. Waves of searing heat radiated from him, creating ripples that kept the mindless decaying corpses at bay. Su Heng's gaze swept across the courtyard. Finally, it landed on Sugui. Looks like I'm not too late after all. You all retreat first, Su Heng said to Li Si in the crowd, leave the rest to me to handle. Li Si took a while to realize that this demon-like figure in front of him was their young master. Gulp. He swallowed hard and nodded stiffly. He then reached out to help Sugui up by one arm and forcefully pulled him to his feet. Li Si led Sugui towards the back of the courtyard. A servant beside him spoke with uncertainty. Was that person just now young Master Su? Just him alone, facing so many monsters, can he really handle it? I heard people say young Master Su is a martial arts prodigy, but I never imagined he'd be so formidable. He even looks more like a monster than the monsters themselves. Don't talk nonsense. Li Si cast a cold glance at the protector, who immediately fell silent. Take good care of old Master Su, as for the rest, we just wait for the outcome. Li Si sighed, turned his head, and saw Su Heng's imposing figure bathing in the gray curtain of rain. Whoosh! Rain fell from the sky, creating sparkling and transparent splashes on the ground. Su Heng lowered his head, watching the slowly advancing tide of corpses before him. His expression was calm, but in his eyes glowed an eager fire, a longing for the impending slaughter. You're here, he suddenly spoke. I've already smelled your scent, I've tasted your flesh, I won't forget that flavor. The tide of corpses continued to press forward, gradually enveloping and surrounding Su Heng. Not willing to come out on your own, huh? That's fine. Su Heng's mouth curled into a grimace. Since you're unwilling to come out, then let me force you out. Hiss. A sharp and piercing sound shattered the silence. Su Heng opened his mouth and took a fierce inhalation, creating a white vortex in the air. His already towering figure expanded further as a voluminous amount of gas filled him up. The fiery yang extreme true chi surged like streams converging at his throat. Su Heng's throat bulged slightly outward, a dark red glow shining through his flesh as if he held a scorching fireball in his mouth. The tide of corpses surged forward. At the same time, more than 10 decayed bodies leaped into midair from different directions, launching an assault at Su Heng. Evil breaking roar. Boom. A dull roar exploded like the roaring of 100 beasts, all at once. The raging yang extreme true chi distorted the air, causing substantial ripples. The crystalline raindrops in midair first froze, then shattered into a fine mist. The decayed bodies surrounding Su Heng, as if impacted by a heavy hammer, were all forced back, blood seeping from their noses, mouths, and facial features. Their bodies collapsed, unable to move. The powerful sound waves, condensed from the true chi, spread further outward, causing the trees in the yard to rustle and sway as a shower of leaves and broken branches fell. The walls on either side trembled slightly, tiles fell off, and the white plastered walls began to show fine cracks, distorting and spreading outwards. The Yangpole Black Evil skill came with special effects. The evil breaking roar was even more potent than Su Heng had anticipated. With one shout, 99% of the decayed bodies in the courtyard were cleared. What remained was a solitary decayed body standing before Su Heng. This was the water ghost disguised as a decayed body, seeking an opportunity to launch a surprise attack and get rid of Su Heng, the only one in the city who posed a threat to it. Unfortunately for the water ghost, the gap between them was too vast. Before the water ghost could execute its plan, all the decayed bodies it had created were brought down by Su Heng. Now, it's your turn. Bang. Su Heng's face bore a malevolent expression as he stopped, cracking the floor beneath him. He turned into a blur, ripping through the air, with raindrops exploding around him, appearing before the water ghost enveloped in a mighty aura. SSS, his 5 fingers spread open, engorged and swollen. His arm, thick as a copper pillar and shrouded in black smoke, reached towards the water ghost's head. The latter crossed its arms in defense, and upon impact, a clear ring of mist burst forth amid the rainwater. The ferocious yang extreme true chi surged into the water ghost's body layer by layer, shattering its defense, and Su Heng sent its wiry frame flying with a direct hit. The creature spewed a mouthful of old blood midair before crashing heavily into a distant wall with a snap. The water ghost's disguise failed. Its body elongated to nearly 2 meters, with an abundance of green fur growing on it and sharp teeth protruding from the sides of its mouth. Raising its head, it looked at Su Heng with eyes filled with both shock and fear. Su Heng took a step forward. Instantly, the creature turned and fled over the collapsed courtyard wall, moving as fast as it could to get away from Su Heng. Though its strength was mediocre, its physical conditioning was indeed formidable. Especially when bathed in rainwater, within a few breaths, it had already regained its mobility. Moreover, relying on its agile body, it dodged into narrow alleys and decrepit rooms, attempting to shake off Su Heng. It was evident that even a newly born demon possessed considerable intelligence, no less than that of an ordinary human. Add to that its spectral and elusive talents, along with its terrifying growth traits. This creature, once fully grown, could effortlessly devastate an entire city. It was truly terrifying and could be considered humanity's natural enemy. Unfortunately, it had encountered Su Heng this time and was doomed to perish here. Chapter 19 Fear Whoosh. Amidst the curtain of rain, a slender dark green figure, like a fish, darted past and leaped into a dark alley only about a foot wide. Boom. A moment later, there was a loud noise. A huge figure, akin to a pitch-black chariot, charged straight into it. The walls on both sides of the alley cracked and collapsed, sending out a continuous roar, and smoke appeared, looking from above like a giant beige dragon charging forward with roar. As the walls collapsed and tore apart, the dark green figure rushed towards a nearby house. Bang! Su Heng struck through the air with a punch. The terrifying punch compressed the air, forming a dense white shockwave. The already rotting house beams splintered under the immense force, collapsing, turning half of the house into rubble, revealing a mother and child huddled together, shivering in fear in the other half. The mother and child had faces full of terror. A child about 7 or 8 years old opened his mouth, unable to hold back from screaming out loud. But he was smothered by his mother, his eyes revealing uncontrollable terror. Boom! Su Heng leaped high, descending from the sky. The house shook again, dropping large amounts of dust. The ruins were completely compacted, forming a dirt pit several meters in diameter. Clatter! The broken debris shifted, and the severely injured water ghost darted out toward the mother and child. Suheng snorted coldly, his eyes twisting with countless floodlights. A tremendous amount of yang extreme true chi surged into his throat. The terrifying sonic boom exploded in a conical shape in midair. The water ghost was as if struck by lightning. Frozen midair, its body burst into a mass of blood light. It let out a sharp scream, crashed onto the ground, and from its body emanated a series of crisp snaps as it rapidly darted out in another direction. Suheng glanced at the mother and child, casually tossed them a silver tael as compensation, and then continued his chase. Whoosh! He leaped into the rain curtain, following the water ghost into an open street. Houses on both sides of the street bore numerous infected corpses, by the hundreds, like an army, blocking Suheng's path. Meanwhile, the water ghost took refuge in a complex residential area. If it could find a well, it would be able to enter the vast and complex underground water system. Once there, like fish returning to the sea or birds seeking the tranquility of the forests, it would be completely free, no longer in panic like now. The demon possessed not insignificant intelligence. Some could even hide well among the population. The water ghost before him had been frightened by Suheng, leaving a deep impression. It no longer planned to appear in this city, it wanted to stay far away, finding another place to grow anew. However, it had no second chance. Demons, because they devour humans, were feared by the common people. But for Suheng at that moment, such demons were merely food, nothing more. In the eyes of the demons, Suheng was nothing less than another kind of natural predator, a more terrifying heavenly demon. Black veins bulging on his arms, shrouded in scorching yang extreme vapor, he slashed and swept through, a vista of blood and flesh erupting before his eyes. Thousands of rotting corpses, not even 10 breaths had passed before Suheng violently penetrated through them. The water demon's green figure vanished into a desolate courtyard, disappearing from Suheng's sight. But that didn't matter. Suheng could smell the scent emanating from the water ghost. He slightly discerned the direction, exerted force under his feet, sprinting forward, and then leaped high again. A moment later, a continuous roar of thunderous noises came from the abandoned residential area. Amidst the curtain of rain, plumes of earth-gray smoke rose up, and the entire city trembled slightly. From a distance, County Magistrate Chukai of Chenking County was leading hundreds of constables to defend the government office, fighting against a large number of rotting corpses in front of them. The Great Zhou dynasty valued literature over martial prowess, so naturally, the combat effectiveness of these constables was quite limited. Most of them were just getting by. Once a real test arrived, they were not much stronger than ordinary people. Even with an expert like Songbei present, facing the army of infected that swelled like the tide, he felt powerless and could only barely resist. And he had to be mindful of the rain, to avoid getting drenched and silently infiltrated by the plague through the skin. Under many such factors, the situation became increasingly perilous. However, just when the constable's defense was about to completely collapse, those rotting corpses abruptly changed direction and rapidly surged towards another part of the street. "Why is this happening?" a constable exclaimed with wide eyes. "We're finally alive." Another constable gasped dramatically, sitting down on the ground with a thud. "If something is abnormal, there must be demons at work, don't let your guard down." Songbei clenched his teeth, his hands gripping the firewood knife, veins bulging prominently. "Look, what is that?" Chukai shouted from within the crowd, despite having no martial arts skills. However, his eyes were exceptionally bright, having better vision than average, able to clearly see figures moving along the walls from hundreds of meters away. Covered in green, with a slender body, it looks like the water ghost recorded in ancient texts, the record keeper whispered, wearing a black scholar's hat. The record keeper assisted the county magistrate in handling documents, writing the county annals, and so on. Since the outbreak of the plague in Chenking County, he had been reviewing a lot of material, including myths and folklore. He had thought those records were merely bizarre legends, thrilling and scary tales. Yet, he never expected to witness these supernatural events unfolding before him. Therefore, when he saw the dark green slender figure, he immediately thought of the water ghosts recorded in those documents. Water ghost. Chukai gasped, is this what caused Chenking County to become like this, alongside those rotting corpses outside? That's what the county annals record, the record keeper said softly. So, if we kill the water ghost, could we resolve this crisis? Chukai asked again. I don't know. The record keeper first shook his head and then bitterly smiled, but we're just flesh and blood, how can we fight against demons and ghosts? Chukai was taken aback. The hope that had just ignited was swiftly extinguished. No, wait. Songbei suddenly spoke up, that water ghost, it looks like it's fleeing. No sooner had he spoken than a loud bang echoed from afar. A yellowish-brown tower collapsed, dust billowing, and it seemed like even the ground vibrations could be felt here. A tall, dark figure burst through the thick smoke, rushing straight in the direction the water ghost had fled, disappearing from sight in an instant. Hiss. Chukai gasped, "Damn it, there's a second demon. Can you identify what kind of demon this one is?" Chukai asked the record keeper beside him. The record keeper shook his head, "But, this demon. It seems to greatly resemble Master Suheng of the Su family." Suheng had once spent a great effort researching supernatural creatures. And the record keeper, being in charge of the county annals, naturally had quite a few interactions. His impression of Suheng was indeed profound. Suheng. Chukai's mind flashed with the image of those blood-red pupils. He was startled again, a chilling sensation spreading up his spine, cold sweat forming on his forehead. Recalling how he was blinded by greed on that day, wanting to lock him up in the dungeon to severely exploit the Su family. Looking back, it was fortunate that he abandoned his stubbornness quickly. Otherwise, he feared he wouldn't even know how he died. But, even the terrifying water ghost was being chased. Could this Master Suheng of the Su family really be some form of humanoid demon? Chapter 20, The End. The rainwater was murky, the city deadly silent. The gravely injured water ghost raced forward in desperate flight. The collapsed buildings around it, corpses on the ground, and randomly disposed trash blurred into gray-yellow streaks in its view. It darted through the narrow alleys and leaped over crumbled courtyard walls. There before it was a decrepit courtyard. In the center of the courtyard, an ancient square well was bathing in the pouring rain. The water ghost's eyes widened with a desperate yearning. Whoosh! The body, already pushed to its limits, exerted force once more. Its slender legs, like springs filled with power, thrust forward violently, gaining speed instantly. Crack! In the sky, a thunderclap exploded. A dark, expanding figure, monstrous as a mountain with disheveled hair, appeared starkly in front of the water ghost, backlit by the lightning. This man was none other than Suheng. Running? Suheng grinned ferociously, his teeth chillingly white. He spread his arms wide as his veins bulged alarmingly, his sleeves tearing inch by inch to reveal the horrifyingly twisted muscles beneath. "Where do you think you're running?" Suheng laughed wildly. He spread his 5 fingers, each one glowing red-hot like a heated copper pillar, smoking. Hiss, Suheng slapped down with one hand. The air tore with a piercing howl like a chorus of wild beasts. The water ghost's eyes tore, its body trembled violently, the dark demonic hand looming and swelling swiftly in its sight, obscuring everything in a blink. No escape, no resistance. Bang! At that critical moment, its body rapidly contracted, curling tightly, its arms wrapped in front forming a fuzzy green meatball. Under immense pressure, the meatball was squashed and deformed, emitting a series of crisp cracks. The deformed body of the water ghost was flung backward. The dirt yellow wall behind it collapsed, burying it, sounds of struggling emanating from underneath. However, Suheng smashed down with another fist. Boom! The collapsed wall exploded into rubble, a pool of dark green blood mingling with the rain. Huff! Suheng breathed heavily, allowing the rain to fall on him. It turned into streams, flowing over his chiseled chest, soaking his entire body. He waved his hand. The disfigured body of the water ghost was lifted in his hand. The rich scent of blood stimulated Suheng's taste buds, his saliva thickening. His stomach also growled, sending signals of hunger to his brain. Suheng looked up at the sky. The heavy rain continued, but it slowly subsided. The heavens were tumultuous, the once dark skies showed as lit, a hint of golden light filtering through. "It's over." Suheng heard footsteps mixed with the rainfall. These were the clerks attracted by the noise and the protectors from the Su family estate. Suheng had no inclination to explain himself to them, nor did he have any desire for worldly rewards or honors. The pressing matter was to properly dispose of the water ghost's corpse in his hands. Just a small piece of flesh from the water ghost could trigger mutations in the meridians, bringing a significant increase in attribute points. And now, with the entire corpse of the water ghost in his hands, he could extract over 100 pounds of fresh flesh. Such an amount could allow him to perfect several of his cultivation techniques in a short period of time. After all, every part of a demon's body is a treasure. This would undoubtedly bring Suheng many unexpected additional gains. Swish! At that thought, Suheng, fighting fatigue, blinked and disappeared into the curtain of rain. Rustle! The rain continued to fall. Not long after Suheng left, a group of figures cloaked in straw raincoats and wielding swords and sabers appeared in the abandoned courtyard. The martial master Zhao He from the Su family, and the hired experts of the Zhu family and He family who spent a great deal of money. New gang members from Chinking County, along with the government officials and the county magistrate Chu Kei, were all among them. Among these forces, some were openly hostile, others harbored hidden murderous intents. But at this moment, looking at the ground pocked with pits as if bombarded, and the collapsed courtyard walls, earthen towers, and houses along the way. All faces were stunned into silence, unable to utter a word for a long time. The water ghost. The monster is dead. It was the chief registrar who spoke up, breaking the silence at the scene. In the largest crater in the courtyard, nearly 1 meter in diameter, lay a patch of foul-smelling dark green blood at the bottom. Undoubtedly, that was the blood of the water ghost. One could imagine its tragic death. A punch that came from the heavens ripped through the body with fierce, exaggerated force, leaving a crater in the hard ground. This punch, I fear, could have even pierced through the city gate of Chang'an County. Chukai squatted on the ground. He extended his fist, compared it to the crater in front of him, and then couldn't help but shudder, swallowing his saliva dryly. Is this really something humanly possible? A fierce-looking gang leader exclaimed, his eyes wide. Regardless, Chang'an County is bound to change in the future, said a Zhou family expert with a smile of resignation on his face. Originally, Chang'an County had 4 major families. But due to the water ghost, the Zhou family among the 4 families had been wiped out. The numerous businesses and shops left by the Zhou family were seized by the remaining 3 major families. Due to the uneven distribution of benefits, they almost came to blows, creating numerous conflicts. Now, seeing this scene in front of them, they knew that the past disputes would never arise again. Even the remaining 2 major families, and even the Chang'an County government itself, would have to find ways to ingratiate themselves with the Su family. Carrying the remains of the water ghost, Su Heng returned to his small courtyard in the 9th lane. Based on previous experience, the best way to extract the greatest value from the flesh and blood of the water ghost was to mix a portion of demon meat with a large amount of ordinary food. And if so, hundreds of pounds of demon meat would not be consumable all at once. And since water ghosts could spread plague, it was very likely that they carried some elements harmful to ordinary people. Therefore, Su Heng planned to dig a basement in his courtyard, specifically for storage and research. As soon as he thought of it, he acted. Su Heng roughly sketched out a blueprint for the basement, then started working. With his immense strength and the help of craftsmen, the construction progressed rapidly. In less than a day, a rudimentary basement appeared beneath Su Heng's bedroom. Although it lacked any extra facilities, Su Heng was very satisfied. He knew that in the days following the turmoil, many would come to his residence to disturb him. So, after the basement was completed, Su Heng simply stayed inside to meditate in seclusion, focusing on studying the peculiarities of the water ghost's corpse. As for the affairs outside, he left them all to his father, Sugui, to handle. Even when it came to eating every day, he had someone deliver the food to his bedroom. Thus, 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Unexpectedly, Su Heng indeed found something surprising on the corpse of the water ghost. Chapter 21, The Poison Sack Whoosh. Accompanied by a sharp whistling sound. In the dark night, a flare shot up to the sky, exploding in midair, and countless fragments of light poured down like raindrops. The glow of the fireworks reflected on Su Heng's face. His gaze was vacant, seemingly mulling over something, and his entire demeanor became quiet. Have you figured it out? A voice rang out beside Su Heng. Su Heng was startled, blinked, turned his body, and the face that appeared before his eyes was none other than Sugui's, flushed with a rosy glow. Figured out what? His face showed confusion, and he asked somewhat perplexedly. The matter of the arranged marriage, Sugui said with wide eyes, trying to persuade him. A few days ago, the Zhou family came to propose. They brought many betrothal gifts, including deeds to a large number of shops. If you accept this marriage, all this wealth would be. Not interested, Su Heng interrupted Sugui's endless talk. Even though he expected such a response, Sugui still sighed, with a trace of regret on his face. Didn't you used to quite fancy that girl from the Zhou family? The past is the past, now is now, Su Heng said, this world is no longer the same. The eldest daughter of the Zhou family was named Zhu Keixiao, and she was very beautiful. In Su Heng's eyes, she was second only to his sister Su Li. Previously, Su Heng had also thought about marrying and having children in Chang'an County, taking over the family property, and living a stable life. It seemed quite nice. Unfortunately, the appearance of the golden finger and the demons had completely disrupted Su Heng's mundane thoughts, as a completely different path unfolded before him. Love between men and women, family conversations, these things, he no longer cared much for. Dong dong kayang. Dong dong kayang. The noisy sound of gongs and drums interrupted the conversation between father and son. On the street before them, a series of lantern floats streamed by, accompanied by children's laughter. On both sides of the road, there were all kinds of stalls, showcasing brightly colored lanterns and decorations, and the aromas of various delicacies wafted from within, making one's mouth water. This was actually a night market, and quite a bustling one at that. They say it's to boost morale, Sugui explained with a smile, The county magistrate said the taxes are waived for these few days, so many people have set up stalls outside, making it look livelier. Those ghosts and goblins are most afraid of lively energy. When the spirit of the people is strong, all the evil energy, ghostly energy, and the like that harm people will naturally dissolve into nothingness. Sugui gestured with a wave of his hand as if to drive away all those harmful beings. That's not necessarily the case. Su-heng shook his head. He looked at the bustling crowd in front of him but felt not a shred of security. The water ghost had died. But around Shinigami County, there was another, even more terrifying fog demon, whom even the Grandmaster on Blackthorn Mountain couldn't vanquish, laying waste to Hyuga Mountain. If you add the strange flesh golem inside Hyuga Mountain, that would be the second demon. The water ghost was just a beginning. As time passed, the situation in Shinigami County would only deteriorate further. Until order completely collapsed, corpses littered everywhere, and the living suffer immensely. The current bustle of the night market seemed to dilute the gloom brought about by the water ghost, but those cheering and lively people appeared in Su-heng's eyes as fleeting as ephemeral clouds and smoke. In 2 or 3 years' time. From among these crowds, it was a mystery how many would survive. You don't know, recently a lot more people in Shinigami County have taken up martial arts. Those sluggish martial arts halls are packed every day, especially the Pure Yang Martial Arts Hall. Even if they tripled the teaching fees, people are still queuing to learn skills non-stop. Sugui, unaware of the worry on Su-heng's face, spoke excitedly. The Pure Yang Martial Arts Hall is making money, why are you so happy about it? Su-heng asked, puzzled. You forget, we invested a hefty sum in the Pure Yang Martial Arts Hall, and there's a share of the profits, Sugui explained happily. Those people are useless, Su-heng said speechlessly. I got to this point because of my strong talent, it has nothing to do with the Pure Yang skill itself. Those people are just wasting their time and money learning martial arts. They won't learn anything significant. Who cares, Sugui said indifferently, as long as I can make money, that's fine. Whether they learn anything is their own problem. How are those gangs that took the opportunity to cause trouble now? Su-heng asked again. Don't worry about it, they've all been dealt with, Sugui said. Those gangs managed to rise because the main focus of the government forces was on dealing with demons and suppressing the plague. Now that the water ghost has been dealt with, the police have made a resolute decision to take action, and those gang members naturally scattered like birds and beasts, becoming insignificant. That's good. Su-heng finally let go of the last bit of worry that had been lingering in his heart. It's getting late, I'll be leaving now, Su-heng said. You should also rest early and take care of yourself. Sugui nodded. Oh. He said, there's one more thing I haven't told you about. What is it? Su-heng turned around. Su-li, Sugui said, I've just received news that in the next few days, your sister will be returning from the prefectural government. That's actually good news, Su-heng thought of a bright and vivacious figure in his mind. Since the resurgence of demons, the world had been thrown into chaos. Su-heng had always been worried about whether Su-li would encounter any accidents on her way home, but now it seemed he might have been overly concerned. Everything was going smoothly. That was the best outcome. Leaving the residence, Su-heng returned to his own courtyard and entered the basement. Hiss. Yang extreme true chi began to flow. He lightly swiped over the wick of the oil lamp, and the flame was lit, its flickering light gradually dispelling the darkness. This recently completed basement was about 20 square meters in size, with several oil lamps hanging on the walls and ventilation holes installed in concealed places in the ceiling. In the center of the room was a roughly 2-meter long and 1-meter wide wooden table. On the wooden table was a corpse that had been gutted and dissected. This corpse was none other than the demon water ghost that had died by Su-heng's hand not long ago and had now been completely dismembered by him. Its innards had been nearly hollowed out. The heart, lungs, intestines, and other withered organs were hanging from metal hooks. Parts of its limbs had also been removed and consumed by Su-heng, transformed into attribute points. Only the torso still remained largely intact. Su-heng put on gloves and began removing the last bits of flesh from the water ghost's body, which seemed useless, placing them aside. Soon, a dark green poison sac appeared before Su-heng's eyes. Even though the water ghost was dead beyond doubt, this poison sac, the size of an adult's fist, was still pulsating and twitching as if alive. In the darkness, it emitted a faint purple glow. There was also an indescribable fishy smell. Su-heng frowned slightly and, gripping the poison sac, gently pinched the connecting blood vessel, and the poison sac was completely removed. At the same time, a pale gray text suddenly appeared before Su-heng's eyes. Detecting demon remains. Analyzing. Analysis successful. Demon remains. Water ghost poison sac. Would you like to integrate? Chapter 22 Demon corpse. A demon carcass? What is this thing? If I choose to fuse with it, Will I become a monster like the water ghost? Glancing at the heavy poison sack in his hand, a host of doubts rapidly flickered through Su Heng's mind. It seemed to understand his thoughts. A series of gray-white subtitles appeared before Su Heng's eyes. Demon carcass, the residual remains left behind after a demon dies. After fusing with a demon carcass, one can acquire some of the demon's innate talents. After fully integrating a demon carcass, it can be extracted from the body and fused with again. Currently, you can fuse with one demon carcass. Upon advancing to the next realm, an additional fusion slot can be obtained. As he studied the series of explanations in front of him, Su Heng fell into contemplation. The demon carcass gave him an impression somewhat akin to a type of special equipment. Or rather, to use a more vivid comparison, it's like the metallic prosthetics in the cyber world whereby implanting external objects, one can directly increase one's talents and strength. Fusion, since it was possible to choose to fuse and also to extract it from within, Su Heng didn't harbor too many concerns. Hiss. After choosing to fuse, the temperature of the poison sac surged, transforming into a puddle of purple viscous liquid. It clung tightly to Su Heng's skin as it slowly seeped into his body, the blue-purple venom visible following his veins and spreading into his internal organs. A tingling sensation emanated from his abdomen. Countless vessels pulsed and wove into a sphere, enveloped by a layer of flesh and glands. In an instant, Su Heng could clearly feel. An entirely new organ had formed within him, connecting seamlessly with his other organs. Sigh. Su Heng opened his eyes and exhaled a long breath of stale air. He stretched his 5 fingers and then slowly clenched his fist, making a crackling noise. Yang extreme true chi circulated within him, his body elongated, with thick veins emerging on his body's surface. Su Heng threw 2 punches into the air. Very good, there were no signs of discomfort in his body. On the contrary, due to the integration of the poison sac, his physical condition had slightly improved. Su Heng did not immediately investigate the specific effects of the poison sac but tried to extract it from within his body. Under the guidance of Su Heng's will, the newly formed organ within him split apart, and a large number of purple filaments slowly covered the skin of his abdomen. Gradually, the outline of the water ghost poison sac took shape on Su Heng's abdomen. Once it fully solidified, rip. Su Heng reached out and tore it off, a ripping sound emanating from his skin. The poison sac was completely removed from within his body, the whole process not causing much discomfort. Just a dark red mark remained on the skin of his abdomen, which faded and vanished quickly with the passing of time. The poison sac was, after all, from a demon. Even if the attribute panel confirmed no significant negative impacts, Su Heng still repeatedly tested and confirmed before he slowly let go of the worries he had suspended. After investing some time, he fused with the poison sac once more. Su Heng opened his attribute panel. Demon carcass, water ghost poison sac, special effects, corpse control, plague transmission, water's grace. The few abilities of the water ghost have basically all appeared here, Su Heng mused. Compared to the original, the effects are definitely diminished. After all, it's the power of a demon. If used properly, it can have extraordinary effects in special situations. The most profound impression the water ghost left on Su Heng was not the plague nor the manipulation of corpses but that formidable regenerative capability. That was a formidable innate talent, one that allowed for a swift recovery of mobility through rainwater, even after suffering heavy damage. If it weren't for such vigorous life force, the water ghost would have been killed on the spot with a slap by Su Heng back in the Su family's mansion courtyard. There would have been no subsequent chase. If this kind of recovery power could be used by me, even if it requires a specific environment, it would have great effects. A glint of light flashed in Su Heng's eyes. No time to delay, let's first try out what exactly the water ghost's abilities are. Whoosh! A flash of firelight. Su Heng's figure suddenly disappeared from the basement. A night with a clear moon and sparse stars. Flap flap. As the pitch-black branches swung back and forth, a dark shadow fell from the sky. It was several bald vultures pecking at the corpses on the ground. In the distant wilderness, a few green lights could still be seen. They were packs of wild wolves, attracted by the stench of blood here, feasting to their heart's content. This was an uncared-for burial ground outside the city, where most of the bodies dealt with in Chinking County were carelessly discarded. Whoosh! A yin wind blew by. The tree branches swayed back and forth, their friction creating noise. The vigilant vultures lifted their heads, scanning the surroundings to ensure there was no movement, before lowering their heads to continue pecking at the corpses. However, out of the corner of their eyes, they suddenly noticed an imposing dark shadow appearing behind them. The vultures were startled. They squawked unpleasantly, beat their wings, and quickly flew away from the mass burial site. Su Heng's gaze lingered on the vultures for a moment before withdrawing it and focusing on the indistinct, disfigured corpse in front of him. This corpse is decomposed a bit too severely. Su Heng shook his head. He continued to search for a suitable target amidst the burial ground. Dragging out some robust corpses, he piled them up and fetched water from a nearby river using a wooden bucket. Su Heng extended his finger. Fluid secreted from the poison sac mixed into the water. As his finger gently stirred, the originally clear and transparent liquid gradually clouded over with a strange dark yellow tint, accompanied by an unpleasant odor. The texture of the liquid also became thick and murky, resembling a poisonous colloid. The water ghost relies on this method to create rotting corpses, truly amazing. After integrating the poison sac, these methods appeared in his memory as if instinctual. Although it was his first time, Su Heng quickly mixed a whole bucket of the poison fluid and poured it all over the gathered decaying corpses. Next, it's time to witness the miracle. Su Heng closed his eyes. He felt a breath, like fine threads, extending from himself to the decaying corpses in front of him. A rustling sound came through, and the decaying corpses clumsily stood up. The first one, the second one, the third one. It was not until over 100 decaying corpses appeared in front of Su Heng that he gradually felt he had reached his limit. Conducting corpse control is more a drain on the spirit level. Su Heng reached out to rub his temples, his bloodshot eyes betraying his weariness. Moreover, these corpses can't hold up for too long. Once decomposed to a certain degree, they can no longer be controlled. Su Heng quickly realized the limitations of this ability. For combat, it's fine against ordinary people, but against true powerhouses, it's somewhat lackluster. However, using corpse control for some other tasks seems pretty good. Now for the second trial. Su Heng noted down his findings, waved his hand, and the decaying corpses bent over to dig large pits for themselves, then buried themselves alive, quieting down eventually. Clap clap. Watching the scene unfold before him, Su Heng clapped his hands, a satisfied smile appearing on his face. Not bad. He casually tossed aside the wooden bucket in his hand. I borrow your bodies for a bit and in turn, help you to be put to rest. I'm taking a loss, so you don't need to thank me. We're even. Very good, very good. Chapter 23, Grace. The stench of rotting corpses at the chaotic burial mounds, the bright and eerie full moon, the vultures circling in the sky, and the pitch-black old trees with their demon-like claws and teeth. Such a bizarre atmosphere could easily make a grown man's legs tremble with fear. Especially since a strange incident had just occurred in Chinking County. Yet Su Heng was there alone, amusing himself without any issues, even managing to crack a few jokes to himself. But as he laughed, Su Heng inexplicably felt a bit foolish. He shook his head, grateful that there was no one else around in the burial mounds at midnight. He casually dismissed these thoughts. Apart from controlling corpses and spreading plagues, the most important talent of the water ghost is the gift of water marsh. Yes, this is the talent I value most, he mused. The gift of water marsh allows a severely injured water ghost to quickly recover its ability to move. Such recovery must be achieved by increasing metabolism. If metabolism can be accelerated, then in the presence of water, digestion can also be sped up, helping me gain more attribute points in the same amount of time. After the incident with the water ghost, the power of the Su family had grown stronger than before, making it the undisputed leading family in Chinking County. Even the local government had to give them some deference. And as the root cause of all this, Su Heng's spending on the martial path was unlimited. What limited his acquisition of attribute points was never the availability of food, but rather the nutrients contained in the food, his personal digestive capacity, time, and other factors. Among these factors, an improvement in his personal digestive capacity made the most immediately noticeable change. The Black Evil technique and Pure Yang skill are merged, but to cultivate to perfection in a short period of time, I still need a lot of attribute points. There's also the Red Poison technique that could probably be merged using the same method. Vein mutation. Su Heng glanced at his attribute panel. The progress of the vein mutation had already increased to 65%. Physical mutations directly affected Su Heng's fundamental attributes such as strength, speed, endurance, and even reaction speed. But to achieve perfect mutation, Su Heng had a feeling that the 3 cultivation techniques he held were not enough. He needed to find additional internal cultivation techniques by some means. As for acquiring these techniques, it was not difficult. He could scatter silver around, and there were plenty of destitute martial masters willing to teach their lifetime of knowledge. Even if Chinking County lacked suitable techniques, he could send people to search in other counties or even cities. The real issue, however, was still the attribute points. Attribute points could not only strengthen and merge Su Heng's cultivation techniques, but even the recently acquired poison bag demon corpse could be further strengthened and merged. However, this stage required a lot of attribute points, and with demons and ghosts elusive, Su Heng couldn't quickly obtain a second type of demon corpse. He had to temporarily put this trial aside. Looking at the attribute points in his hands. 25 points. Before obtaining the remains of the water ghost, relying on the flesh of the Taisui, Suheng could earn 1 attribute point a day, which was astonishing. But now, with the aid of pure demonic flesh, Suheng's speed of gaining attribute points was about 8 per day, a drastic improvement. And 30 attribute points could potentially take a genuine internal cultivation technique, from just beginning to the stage of stepping into mutation and breaking limits. As his thrifty master Ning Zaibai had said, for an ordinary person to cultivate a technique to its limit would require 30 years of persistent hard work, and also decent innate talent, intelligence, guidance from a skilled teacher, and a considerable amount of medicinal consumption during the training process. But attribute points could skip all of these needs, leading directly to the final outcome. And because there would be no mishaps during the training process, each stage would reach perfection. Compared to those who followed traditional training methods, Suheng's foundation would even be more profound at the same level. This was simply. But the attribute panel is also a part of my strength, he said. He remembered how, in order to gain an attribute point, he used to eat heavily every day. The pride that had just started to swell in Suheng's heart dissipated like smoke. Every effort has its reward. All this was earned by his sweat. No, by his saliva. There was nothing to feel emotional about. Swish. At this thought, Suheng's mind suddenly cleared a great deal. His figure flickered as he left the chaos of the creepy, stinky graveyard and headed towards the clear waters of the creek to the west. King Shui Creek was a tributary of the Nine Twists River. Although it was called creek, during the rapid water flows of spring, it could reach depths of 3 to 5 meters, and every year, people drowned here. There was also an arched bridge over King Shui Creek, under which hung a rusty iron sword from the old wooden bridge. The banks were rugged with stones and overgrown with various thorns and weeds. Thump. Suheng took off his coat and casually threw it aside. About half a catty of water ghost flesh was also placed on the clothes, to be tried out later. He looked around, making sure there were no large wild animals lurking around. Not about to have his provisions snatched away, Suheng leaped into the raging creek waters. Splash. A huge splash erupted on the surface of the water. Suheng's robust figure soon vanished among the glimmering ripples. He now weighed 290 pounds, was just over 1.9 meters tall, and his body did not appear bulky. This meant, compared to the average person, Suheng's body density was much higher. The body density of a normal person was basically the same as that of clean water, but Suheng's was greater, so he quickly sank to the bottom even in a turbulent river. He sat cross-legged on a smooth, gigantic stone. His mouth was tight. True chi circulated slightly within his body before he opened his eyes. The creek water was clear. Looking up, he could vaguely see the golden moon in the sky, and in front of him, a black scale carp stared at him with big eyes, seemingly bewildered by the sudden appearance of this strange creature. As Suheng opened his eyes, the carp got scared. Then it swished its tail and quickly left, disappearing from Suheng's view in the blink of an eye. Grace of the water. Suheng, having frequently played in rivers before, immediately noticed the difference. Firstly, the resistance in the water had subtly decreased. Secondly, his ability to hold his breath improved as true chi circulated in his body, with threads of oxygen being absorbed through his pores. Even if he stayed in the water for a long time, he didn't feel much suffocation. As for controlling the flow of water, that was something Suheng couldn't do. Of course, there was one more crucial point. Swish. Suheng pushed hard against the rock beneath his feet, and shot forward like a fish. He broke the surface and his wet head emerged. He stretched out his arm to take the water ghost flesh he had placed on his clothes, tilted his head back, and swallowed it in one gulp. Gulp. Suheng dived back into the creek. As the water ghost flesh digested, this time he distinctly felt something different. Chapter 24, Elder Sister. Threads of warmth spread from his abdomen, seeping into his limbs and bones. Compared to the past, endowed with the talent of water affinity, his body soaked in the stream. The warmth that emerged from his abdomen, after devouring an equal portion of demon flesh, seemed significantly thicker. This meant that Suheng's guess was right. The water ghost poison sac could enhance his metabolism, thereby improving the efficiency of nutrient absorption and even the speed of absorption noticeably. All things considered, probably about a 30% increase. A joyful expression appeared on Suheng's face amid the clear stream waters. A 30% increase. It might not seem like much, but the key was that the growth from the water ghost poison sac could consistently exert its effects. That is to say, even if Suheng ran out of demon meat and returned to his impoverished old days, leveraging ordinary meat, his attribute point acquisition pace would still increase. As time passed, the enhancements from the water ghost poison sac would become even more evident. And this was only the first stage of the poison sac. If he were to acquire similar types of demonic remains in the future and enhance them further, the improvements would be even more significant. Splash. Under the bright moonlight, the gently rippling stream exploded into giant splashes. Su Heng's robust stature leaped out from the water and moved toward the shore, lowering his head to pick up the robe resting on a rock, draping it over his body. The moon sank in the west, while the sun slowly reached up from the east. He had been busy all night. Yet, Su Heng still looked full of vigor, his eyes sparkling with gloss. The water ghost poison sac was a completely unexpected gain, but its effect was immediately apparent. The only pity was, this passive talent could only exert its influence in a watery environment. Thinking of eating while immersed in water in the future. Just the thought made the scene seem somewhat bizarre. It doesn't necessarily have to involve the whole body. As long as there is water, the water affinity talent could be utilized. Furthermore, now that he was living alone outside, this issue wasn't much of an impact. Su Heng shook his head, casting away these odd images from his mind. He suddenly remembered Sugui mentioning that this afternoon, Su Li would arrive at Chinking County. Surely, good things come in pairs. Feeling even more joyful, Su Heng's mood brightened. I need to prepare in advance and buy some gifts, he said. Su Heng dressed himself. With a powerful stride, accompanied by the whistling wind. His towering figure gradually disappeared on both banks of the rushing stream. Time moved to noon the next day. Chinking County, in the busiest fruit street of the city. Bright golden sunlight bathed the continually moving pedestrians, various carts and carriages navigating the street. Around the street corner was a tavern named Conquer the World. The fragrance of wine wafted from inside, along with robust cheers from drinking games. The street scene appeared the same as usual. The only difference was, patrons inside the tavern and passers-by frequently turned their heads, stealthily looking down the street. Ding ding ding. A crisp and pleasant ring of a bell sounded. A green donkey laden with bundles, a golden bell hanging around its neck, was walking leisurely right in the middle of the street. To the left of the donkey were two young girls. The one in front wore a white dress, smart and graceful, and very pretty. Her waist was slim, cinched with a black belt, her skirt boldly exposing her knees while she wore black leather boots up to her calves. From a distance, the girl's long hair and almond eyes, red lips, and white teeth stood out. Her features exuded an air of intellect and purity, with a touch of curiosity and liveliness. The girl following behind was dressed in simple blue clothes, equally beautiful but with a more desolate aura. She held a paper umbrella in her hand, shading herself from the sunlight. Her entire figure was enveloped in shadow, as if only some lines sketched out the girl's slender shape. The two exceptionally stunning young women walked side by side on the street. Both of them possessing quite remarkable demeanors. Such a beautiful scene naturally attracted the attention of many people. Of course, Chinking County had just executed a large number of gang members. Public safety was considered good. Moreover, from their auras, it was evident they came from prominent families. Although the crowd was curious, unable to shift their gaze, they all watched from a distance and did not approach to disturb. The two travel-weary young women. The one in front was Su Li, the eldest daughter of the Su family who studied at Bailu Academy in the county government, Su Heng's sister. The other one behind her was Su Li's maid, Zhao King. Returning home. It should have been a moment of eager excitement. But Su Li's brows were slightly furrowed, and her normally lively face seemed somewhat gloomy. It seemed that she was facing some troubling matter, uncertain about what to do. She lowered her head and pulled out a palm-sized copper compass from her bosom. The crystal in the center of the compass was emitting a faint red light. Oh. Su Li sighed and stuffed the compass back into her bosom. Miss, the maid behind her, seeing her mistress looking so distressed, asked softly, why are you still so troubled even though we have already returned home? I just overheard a discussion in the tavern. The water ghost has been exterminated. Su Li did not open her mouth, but her voice reached the maid's ears. Isn't that a good thing? Zhao King grew even more puzzled. Without any effort, the mission of this trip has been perfectly resolved. But the bad news is, it was my brother Su Heng who dealt with the water ghost. Su Li sighed again. This time her shoulders drooped, and she appeared listless and worried. Moreover, the demon-seeking compass shows that demonic aura still lingers in Chinking County. So, Zhao King tilted her head. She wanted to say something comforting, but did not know how to express it. I suspect. Su Li clenched her fists, her delicate brows tightly knitted, her expression unusually serious. I suspect my brother has been possessed by a demon. Or at least, he's come into contact with some unclean thing. A demon that has completed its transformation, having transcended the mundane, is not something that a mere martial artist can easily handle. Perhaps, your brother is just exceptionally talented, Zhao King spoke crisply. Su Li pondered deeply, recalling the days when Su Heng indulged in pleasures and gradually became corpulent. Impossible, that's absolutely impossible. Su Li shook her head very confidently. There is only one such talent and flair combined in the Su family, and that's me. All right. Zhao King nodded. Though the remark seemed somewhat narcissistic, it was completely true. After all, joining the Demon Suppression Bureau and being able to go out on missions alone to subdue demons within just 2 years demonstrated her remarkable talent. However, Su Li seemed to think of something, a smile appeared on her face, and her large eyes crinkled into crescents. Although my brother is lazy and gluttonous, but what? A steady voice suddenly interrupted. The sunlight was completely blocked, and a tall and burly figure abruptly appeared in front of them. You! Before Su Li could regain her composure, she was already scooped up in an embrace and lifted into the air. Flustered and disoriented, Su Li struggled a bit, but was unable to break free. A moment later, Su Li was gently set down. You! She tidied her somewhat disheveled hair, staring at the tall and burly man in front of her, her face a picture of astonishment. Only when she looked up and saw the familiar face with thick brows and large eyes did Su Li slowly realize, "You're Su Heng?" Indeed. Under the sunlight, Su Heng's smile was bright, showing off a set of neat white teeth. Long time no see, sister. Yes, indeed, it has been a long time. A smile also appeared on Su Li's face. However, compared to Su Heng, her smile was much more stiff. She lowered her head, looking at the demon-seeking compass quietly resting in her palm, which was emitting a deep, blood-like red glow. Chapter 25 Eating People. What are you looking at? Su Heng's curious voice suddenly came. No. Nothing. Su Li fumbled hastily to stuff the demon-seeking compass back into her own bosom, lifting her head with an awkward smile on her face. Ha ha ha. Is that so? Su Heng raised an eyebrow, asking thoughtfully, I always feel like you've been acting strange since you came back, as if you're hiding something on your mind. Could it be that you were bullied at the prefecture office? Su Heng's eyes narrowed, his expression became somewhat dangerous. That's not what happened. Su Li felt a warmth in her heart, waved her hand. You know what I'm like. That is indeed. Su Heng suddenly raised his hand forward. Su Li immediately became alert and took a step back. But then she saw Su Heng just placing his hand on the front collar of his shirt, unbuttoning it to reveal a patch of bronze skin on his chest. He shook his head. The weather really is getting hot. That it is, that it is. Su Li knew her reaction just now was over the top, so she could only laugh awkwardly and agree. This lady is. Su Heng's gaze moved past Su Li's head, landing on the servant girl behind her. She's my maidservant, Zhao King. Su Li reached out to pull Zhao King's arm, but felt the other body stiffen terribly. Zhao King, Su Li pointed at Su Heng and said, this is my younger brother, Su Heng. I've mentioned him to you before. The young woman holding the umbrella nodded stiffly, her face stiff, and though she opened her mouth, no words came out. Your maidservant, however, seems somewhat unfamiliar. Su Heng spoke lightly. She was found in the prefecture city. Zhao King is a good person. Without her help, this journey would not have been easy. Su Li quickly explained. Is that so? Su Heng nodded thoughtfully. His gaze shifted from Zhao King and landed on Su Li. Father has already set the banquet at home. It's getting late. We should head back soon. As for other matters, we can talk over lunch at leisure. Yes. Su Li agreed immediately. And Su Heng turned around, walking alone in front to lead the way. Su Li and Zhao King, each leading a donkey, followed at a suitable distance behind Su Heng. Phew. Su Li had just heaved a sigh of relief. Then she heard Zhao King's fearful voice ring in her ear. Your brother, he wants to eat me. He used to be somewhat lecherous indeed. Su Li said, somewhat surprised, but that joke you told, it's pretty cold huh? I'm not joking. Zhao King's voice continued, before you started learning martial arts, have you ever felt like you were being stalked by large predators in the woods? It's a similar feeling, but even more intense. He wanted to kill me just now, and if he did make a move, I would definitely die. Having heard this, Su Li stopped in her tracks and turned around. She saw Zhao King curled up in the shadows, her complexion deathly pale, her whole body trembling uncontrollably. The fragrance of wine permeated the air as toasting and laughter commingled. Although the atmosphere was slightly tense at the start, everyone soon warmed up to the festivities. During the banquet, Su Li recounted her experiences and observations from her travels for learning. She also spoke of many wondrous and amusing events that had taken place within the prefecture office, eliciting longing expressions from many in attendance. The Su family might be considered local gentry within Shinigami County, but within the entire prefecture, they were merely an ordinary family nestled in a corner. Many people in the family have never even left the vicinity of Shinigami County. Naturally, they were curious about the marvelous cultural experiences of the prefecture office. Sugui drank plenty of wine, his face flushed, as he described the various strange occurrences that had recently transpired in Shinigami County with his mouth wide open. Su Li listened with exceptional attentiveness. When the banquet reached its climax, Sugui even had Su Sheng, who had been quietly eating, Go up and perform. Su Sheng felt numb, but constrained by his father's authority, he had no choice but to recite a passage of reflective poetry in front of everyone. The only thing that mildly surprised Su Gui was, in his memory, the relationship between Su Heng and Su Li, the siblings, was extremely close, sometimes even seeming excessively intimate. But now, after 2 years apart, upon reuniting, Su Gui always felt as though they were hiding something from each other, and their conversation at the banquet was not plentiful. Even though he sensed that the atmosphere was slightly unusual, Su Gui did not think too much of it. Su Li and Su Heng, one was the renowned talented lady at the prefectural government, and the other was a bravo capable of tearing demons apart with bare hands. In the eyes of ordinary people, both were untouchable and esteemed figures. Children growing up, achieving success and fame, a bit of restraint was nothing out of the ordinary. The old master was enjoying his drink, these doubts merely flickered through his mind and were then cast aside. After 3 rounds of drinks and 5 courses of food, the banquet ended. After bidding farewell to her father and brothers, Su Li, along with her maidservant, walked toward the separate courtyard. The other people at the banquet also dispersed in 2s and 3s, each heading home to rest. The large hall soon emptied, leaving only Su Heng alone. And a few servants and maids still tidying up the dining table. Su Heng's eyes went blank as he gazed in the direction Su Li had left. Outside, the sunlight was strong, casting swaying shadows on the branches and the gray-white floor. C-O-O, C-O-O, C-O-O. 2 plump gray pigeons flapped their wings and settled back into their nest, preening their feathers with their beaks. Su Heng's brows furrowed slightly, his expression dark. Reflecting on the scenes that happened since he saw Su Li, he couldn't help but sigh, squinting his eyes, looking up at the sun, allowing the scorching sunshine to bathe him. When the water ghost first appeared in Changqing County, Su Heng began to worry about his sister. From the prefectural city to Changqing County, it was hundreds of kilometers. A woman. It was inevitable to encounter some unexpected events. Only after Su Gui received the news a few days earlier that Su Li had returned safely, did Su Heng slowly let go of the anxiety in his heart. However, today, having seen it with his own eyes, thinking about all the abnormalities, Su Heng was still able to conclude, without a doubt, something peculiar had happened to Su Li. As for what exactly happened, Su Heng was not in a position to say. But the maidservant named Xiaoqing by Su Li's side had a very obvious demonic aura. However, compared to the water ghosts he had encountered before, Xiaoqing's aura was significantly weaker, seemingly different from that of genuine demons. Su Li said that she was able to make the safe journey thanks to Xiaoqing's assistance. The scholar and the female ghost, Ninkaichen and Xiaoqian. Su Heng thought of the story of a Chinese ghost story. But both people were women. Yuri. Playing so boldly, no wonder she has returned from the big city. Su Heng shook his head, feeling that the more he thought, the more preposterous his ideas became. In fact, the moment he first saw Xiaoqing, he entertained the thought of taking her down then and there for interrogation. But seeing that Su Li and Xiaoqing seemed to share a deep bond, this idea was ultimately suppressed by Su Heng bit by bit. Forget it. Su Heng was always decisive in his actions, but this matter involved his own family, and he seemed somewhat conflicted. After pondering for a while, he still sighed and said, "I'll just continue to observe for a while, then make further plans." Chapter 26 Traceless. The banquet ended. But the dishes served were never going to be enough to satisfy Su Heng's appetite. He also had the kitchen prepare a more substantial supplementary meal for himself, to aid in his cultivation and to gain more attribute points. Su Heng returned to his abode. Soon, the servants came in bearing basin after basin of rice, tender stewed meat, and a variety of precious medicinal dishes. All this food, a quantity enough to satiate 7 or 8 sturdy men, was placed on the long table before Su Heng. Yet, Su Heng didn't immediately reach for his chopsticks. Instead, he sat in his chair, raised his leg, and shortly afterward 2 young maids came forward to help him remove his boots. 2 wooden tubs were placed under the table, filled with special broth beneficial to the body. Huff. Su Heng placed his feet into the tubs. Feeling the scorching heat spreading from his soles, gradually permeating through his entire body. His body, which had been tense due to an anomaly, also slowly relaxed, and the myriad thoughts in his mind were temporarily cast aside. His body came into contact with the water. The talent inherited from the water ghost poison sac began to take effect. Su Heng opened his eyes, his metabolism enhanced, his mouth secreting a large amount of thick saliva. So much so that when he opened his mouth, strands of semi-transparent silvery white threads clung between his teeth, displaying Su Heng's vigorous vitality at the moment. The sizzling sound emitted when the steaming hot dipping sauce, splattered with hot oil, was poured over the tender stewed meat. The fragrance of the meat and the spicy taste of the sauce were instantly stimulated to the fullest. Su Heng opened his mouth wide. A pork foot weighing about half a jin was swallowed whole by him, bones and all. Ordinary people chew their food slowly and thoroughly, but Suheng wasn't like that. His consumption of food was akin to downing liquor in big gulps. Various foods. Whether it was rice, stewed meat, or other stir-fried dishes. Suheng just tilted his head back and swallowed. Each movement of his throat signified that about half a jin of food was devoured, quickly digested and broken down. In this manner, an entire table of dishes. In less than a quarter of an hour, Suheng had wiped it all out. Only the greasy plates and pots remained, slightly messily arranged before Suheng, still emitting a faint scent of grease. Comfortable. Suheng's prolonged breath expelled a mouthful of stale air. He slightly loosened the belt around his waist and casually leaned against the back of the chair. Raising his leg, two young maids struggled to carry away the tubs. Then, another pair of maids came with clean towels, wiped the dampness from Suheng's feet, and dressed him in his shoes and socks. The food was quite satisfactory, but Suheng felt something was missing. He pushed back from the table and went out into the courtyard. After a moment of thought, he realized where the problem lay. Where is the Taishui meat? Suheng was taken aback for a moment, looking toward the charioteer Li Si who wasn't far off. Those villagers from Hueco mountain said that the Taishui meat has disappeared from the village. Li Si approached Suheng and replied in a low voice. Is that so? Suheng touched his chin, his gaze lingered on Li Si for a brief while. For some reason, he always felt that Li Si's expression, compared to the past, seemed somewhat vacant. Was he ill? Or had he encountered some difficult troubling issue? Perhaps those villagers are deliberately deceiving us, just looking for an excuse to hike up the price, Li Si added, offering his own conjecture. Yes, that's also a possibility, Suheng nodded in agreement. Should we send someone to check it out? Suheng furrowed his brows in thought, but did not immediately give an answer. The flesh of the water ghost had already been consumed in large part by him. And though the Taishui meat, while not as effective as true demon flesh, the abundant quantity and the help it brought him was obvious. Unless absolutely necessary, Suheng naturally did not want to give up this vast source of attribute points. But Hueco Mountain. Suheng remembered the bizarre demons he encountered in the mountain that day. However, Hueco Mountain was vast, and the place where the Taishui grew was on the eastern side of the mountain base, while the place where the fog demon appeared was towards the west. The two locations were separated by a considerable distance, and there was no need to worry that an encounter was certain. Moreover, during this period of time, no more incidents of fog demons harming people had been heard. It seemed as though with the death of the water ghost, the other demons near Chinking County also felt fear, retreating into the forest and keeping a certain distance from human society. No matter, I'll go there myself, Suheng quickly made up his mind. Then I'll accompany you, Li Si immediately said. The environment in Hueco Mountain is complex, I can lead the way for you. Good. Suheng agreed without further thought. He turned around and strode toward the archway. Behind him, Li Si watched Suheng's receding figure, lowered his head, a strange white mist flashed in his eyes. Yaoang Village. A dilapidated little mountain village in Hueco Mountain. The village isn't large, housing only 100 or so families. The residents lived off the mountain, making a living by hunting and gathering medicinal herbs. They also farmed on the mountain, but due to poor soil fertility, the harvest was meager and barely enough to fill their stomachs. The upside was its seclusion. The government didn't interfere, so basically what they grew, they ate. With additional yields from the mountain forests, life in the village was surprisingly decent despite their remote location. Thud, thud, thud. Under Li Si's guidance, Suheng arrived at Yaoang Village. He reached out and knocked on the weathered wooden gate before him. Creak. After a moment, footsteps came from inside, and the wooden gate was pushed open. An old man with white hair and a hunched back appeared before Suheng. He was the village chief of Yaoang Village, nameless, and simply referred to by the villagers as Old Yuzu. I would like to ask about the water ghost poison sac, Suheng politely began, extending a piece of broken silver. The old man didn't reach out to take it. Haven't we already told you everything we know? His gaze fell on Li Si. Well, alright. Suheng's gaze drifted toward the courtyard before asking, may I borrow a hoe for a moment? Suit yourself, Old Yuzu nodded and stepped aside. Suheng bent down to pass through the wooden gate into the courtyard, took a hoe leaning against the wall into his hands, and gave a grateful bow to the elder. Thank you. I'll return it to you shortly. With the tool in hand, he no longer lingered, leading Li Si out of Yaoang Village. It seemed that the villagers seldom saw outsiders. As they passed through the streets, doors on both sides opened. Figure after figure walked out from the pitch-black rooms. Without speaking a word, they simply turned their heads, revealing eerie smiles on their faces. A pair of eyes misted with a white fog looked at Suheng, watching until his figure had completely disappeared from their sight. The noon had just passed, and under the bright, scorching sunlight, the figures of Yoang villagers seemed ghostly and unreal, giving a chilling sensation up one's spine. Bang! At the foot of the mountain, Su-heng slammed the hoe into the soft soil. This was the place where the water ghost poison sac was unearthed. It looked like a hole created by a meteorite, 7 or 8 meters in diameter, surrounded by a quiet environment. Dense trees grew all around, blocking the sunlight, casting shadows. The chirping of birds from the treetops made one drowsy, but occasionally, a mountain breeze would blow, bringing a touch of coolness, dispelling the drowsiness, and sending a shiver through one's body. Su-heng held the hoe in his hand, swinging it with force. A sharp, piercing sound of air being cleaved filled the air, and the dull thud of the hoe striking the ground was continuous, as large amounts of dark, moist soil were thrown aside, piling up into 2 mounds as tall as a person on either side of Su-heng. In just a short time, a pit more than a meter deep appeared before Su-heng's eyes. Splat! A muffled sound came from the pit ahead. Su-heng's heart leapt with joy, thinking he had finally found the water ghost poison sac. He tossed the hoe aside, jumped into the freshly dug pit, and bent over to clear the black soil inside. He tossed aside fragments of rock and dirt. Su-heng's fingertips felt a soft, eerie sensation, as if the eagerness in his eyes vanished, his expression turned cold, and he slowly cleared the loose soil. Eventually, the secret buried there was fully exposed in front of Su-heng. Even for someone as brave and strong-hearted as Su-heng, seeing what lay before him made his heart skip a beat, feeling a chill spread up his spine. Buried in the hole beneath him, was not the water ghost poison sac he was searching for, but a rotting, bloody visage. That face was very familiar to Su-heng. It was none other than Li Si, the driver who had been following him. But if the real Li Si had been dead here all along, then the Li Si who had been following him. What exactly was he? Chapter 27 True Strength Hiss. Su-heng's pupils shrank slightly as thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. His body suddenly swelled, as Yang extreme true chi infused his entire being. In the sunlight, he left behind smoke-like substantial shadows. Bang! Su-heng turned and threw a punch. Behind him, Li Si's body burst with a pop, turning into a vast expanse of white mist. Within the mist, 2 adult fist-sized golden eyes slowly lit up, their gaze carrying a human-like mockery. A dream-like slender pure white body, enshrouded in golden flames. A single horn on the head and 5 thick tails on its neck. Before Su-heng, emerging from the cloud of mist, was a creature akin to a cheetah, over 3 meters long. It lunged forward violently. Its robust beast claw collided furiously with Su-heng's palm. Bang! It was like a grenade exploding out of thin air in midair. The air, compressed to its limit, burst forth, creating a visible white torrent. In an instant, the grass and clods on the ground were swept up layer by layer, the trees on both sides crackled, and a vast number of dead branches and leaves fell like a waterfall. Su-heng's chest visibly caved in slightly. He lost the initiative and fell at a disadvantage in the collision, flying backwards to land on a rock 5 meters away. Looking at the pure white demon before him, Su-heng's gaze turned solemn. A mist demon. The strength it had just demonstrated was secondary. What truly shocked Su-heng was the innate talent and intelligence of this demon. First, it used its own abilities to disguise itself as Li Si, luring him to this secluded valley. Then it used the scent of the deceased water ghost corpse to mask its own. It waited until he himself unearthed Li Si's decayed corpse from this pit, his mind startled, before the mist demon seized the opportunity and brazenly launched a stealth attack. This series of plans, though rudimentary, was indeed effective. It was hard to imagine they came from the hands of a demon. If thrown into my previous life, this fellow could probably get a master's degree. Su-heng squinted his eyes. Despite the danger, he wasn't flustered and even found the mood to joke with himself. The only pity is, this demon still underestimated my strength. The mist demon was still judging based on the strength Su-heng had shown when they first encountered each other on Hueco Mountain. But since then, Su-heng had slain the water ghost corpse and transplanted the demon cadaver. Then, by devouring the flesh of demons, he obtained a large number of attribute points. Although only 4 days had passed, Su-heng's strength had already increased a lot. Therefore, even though it took the opportunity, the stealth attack still failed to truly damage Su-heng seriously. Even the slight injuries he had just suffered were largely inconsequential within a few breaths. However, Su-heng's thoughts raced, and since the mist demon was so clever, he could also counter its plans and take this opportunity to kill it in one fell swoop. Exactly how talented the mist demon was, Su-heng wasn't quite sure, but that ability to create fog on a large scale and isolate sensation was undoubtedly a powerful means of escape. If it didn't take the initiative to attack, it wouldn't be easy for Su-heng to capture and kill it. Now, on the contrary, he had been given an excellent opportunity. With this thought, A rough plan quickly formed in Su Heng's mind. Just then, the mist demon let out a roar, the sound rolling like boulders, shaking the forest, startling countless birds, and lunging at Su Heng once again. Ha ha ha, kill. Su Heng roared with laughter as his body swelled once again. Huge, terrifying black tendons surfaced all over him, his arms spread wide, then he lunged forward with a fierce pounce. Boom. Within the dense forest, a vast expanse of gray-white mist expanded and tore apart. One black, one white, two muscular figures entangled in combat, like giant bulldozers. Wherever they went, the surrounding rocks, land, and trees exploded one after another. The sounds of explosions came continuously. The ground looked like it had been bombarded by artillery fire, and in the blink of an eye, it was pockmarked with large pits. Evil breaking roar, boom. All of a sudden, a loud explosion rang out. A pitch-black figure tore through the fog, shattering the ground beneath its feet, and suddenly charged toward the river downstream from the mountain. Shaped like a cheetah, the completely white mist demon held golden flames in its mouth, its pupils turned to a reddish gold, and it let out an irritated growl. With a powerful push from its forelimbs, its form unfolded in an instant. It too became a scorching white light, pursuing Su Heng at an even faster speed. The mountains on both sides rose and fell swiftly, flying past, and the airflow, moving at an ultra-high speed, exploded into roaring wind gusts by their ears. Thud. A huge clump of pitch-black shrubs shattered with a casual swipe from Su Heng. After crossing a steep cliff, and with a leap forward, the sounds of rushing water already reached his ears. The pitch-black, murky Nine Curves River carved an arc at the foot of the mountain, huge swaths of foam rising with the waves. In the distance, a shattered, abandoned and decrepit dock. In the grass near the dock, one could still see abandoned carriages, wooden barrels, and so on. It seemed that not long ago, those servants who came to get water had perished right here. That's fine. Su Heng's eyes faintly glowed red. He opened his mouth, his chest swelling as he inhaled a large amount of air. Like a pitch-black meteor, he crashed violently into the turbulent river, causing water to splash everywhere. Splash. The murky water instantly enveloped Su Heng. The water was ice-cold, and the buzzing sound of flowing water was everywhere in his ears. An ordinary person would instinctively feel discomfort in such an environment, but with the various innate abilities brought by the water ghost poison sac, Su Heng was like a fish returning to the sea, a bird taking flight into the sky. First, he felt a coolness all over his body, then a tingling itch spreading through his skin. The crimson wounds left from his battle with the mist demon were now quickly clotting and scabbing over. The enhanced recovery power brought by his strengthened constitution, coupled with the metabolic boost from the blessing of water's grace. In the span of a few breaths, the injuries on Su Heng's body almost disappeared, leaving only shallow pink marks. So next. Within the turbid current, Su Heng suddenly opened his eyes, his pupils blood red. He bared a ferocious smile, and a spine-chilling gurgle came from his belly. Hunting time has come. Level up. Swallowing the water ghost corpse, he gained a massive amount of attribute points. In an instant, they all surged into the Yangpol Black Evil skill, and the numbers behind blurred. Equivalent to the experience, achievements, and various enhancements and changes that ordinary people would accumulate over 3 to 4 decades of cultivation, were now channeled into Su Heng's body. True Qi is the essence of a person, the innate spirit, the breath of life. If it can be cultivated to completion, pressurized, strengthened, heated, maybe it can transform into an even more formidable form. The difference is like that between ordinary water flow and a high-pressure water gun. This is Yangpol True Strength. Yangpol Black Evil Skill Level 9, Special Effects, Yangpol True Strength, Evil Breaking Roar, Chapter 28, Torture and Killing in the Ominous and Silent Forest. A white mist was hazy. A golden blaze shot forward swiftly, with the rushing wind pressure utterly crushing the low bushes on both sides, destroying them. Roar. A roar shattered the mountains and forests. The likewise injured mist demon leaped out and saw the rapid river at the foot of the mountain from afar. It did not slow down, its eyes blazing red, and it pounced forward fiercely. Boom. A terrifying force exploded. The water was pressed down, revealing a semicircular indentation. Amidst the whitish giant waves 10 or more meters high, Su Heng's figure suddenly appeared in front of the mist demon. Ha ha ha. Beast, do you think you can kill me? A wild laugh. The fiery Yangpol True Strength filled Su Heng's body. His clothes ripped to shreds, turning into ashes, his body looking as though it was cast from bronze and iron, glistening under the sunlight. SSS, a huge hand, fan-like, spread open. 5 fingers, each glowing red and thick as copper pillars, came crashing down with a slap. A horrified expression flashed human-like on the gruesome face of the mist demon. Not only had Su Heng's wounds completely healed, but the aura he emitted was many times stronger than before. The wild and fiery yang-pole true strength enveloped Su Heng's fingertips, extending a full foot forward. It twisted the air, vibrating at a high frequency. It looked just like the invisible blades in science fiction movies. Before Su Heng's full strength slap could land, a piercing pain penetrated his bones, causing his flesh to tremble violently, as if his body was about to be torn apart. Roar! The mist demon roared, its pupils turning from golden red to crimson. It knew it had fallen into a trap, but by then, there was no retreat. It quickly gathered all its strength, beautiful golden flames surrounding its body, channeled like a stream into the horn on its head, and with a fierce upward thrust, a crisp crack sounded. The horn on the head of the mist demon was broken by Su Heng, followed by its head being compressed and deformed. Blood spurted from the demon's mouth and nostrils, then was evaporated by the burning yang-pole true strength on Su Heng's body, forming a crimson mist. Oh! A dragon-like strength surged into the mist demon's long, robust body. The creature, over 10 meters long, was flung like a rag doll by Su Heng's palm, crashing into a more distant shallow bay and blasting a hole in the ground. The demon's vitality was vigorous. Even after such severe damage, it did not die immediately. The mist demon's limbs flailed wildly, leaving scrapes on the beach, and it somehow managed to stagger to its feet. A whimper. It did not dare look up at Su Heng even for a moment. It turned and desperately sprinted toward the mist-covered mountains nearby. If it could make it into the mist, it could block both sight and sound, find a chance to escape, slowly recover, and then, hiss. A terrifying black hand grabbed the mist demon's long leopard tail. The latter's body involuntarily lifted off the ground, screaming in panic as it frantically turned its head. In the shadows, Su Heng's black hair was disheveled, the skin on his cheeks taut, his mouth grotesquely wide open, displaying pale, horrific teeth dripping with thick saliva. His eyes were especially horrifying. Crimson throughout, filled with a pathological craving for food. Ow! A shriek of terror came from the mist demon's mouth. Its two front limbs struggled violently, clawing two bloody pits into the ground. But it was futile, as Su Heng's arm muscles contracted. The massive body of the fog demon was completely dominated by a formidable force, lifting off the ground and suspending in midair. Swung up, smashed down. The golden sun hung in the sky, but suddenly it blurred and plummeted rapidly. Crack! Sharp broken rocks about a meter long were underfoot. The spine of the fog demon collided with the broken rocks, making a crisp sound, and the howling stopped abruptly. Bang! Su Heng knelt on the fog demon. With one hand, he firmly locked its body, preventing it from moving. The other hand, wrapped in a thick layer of yang-pole true strength, struck the fog demon's head continuously like a sledgehammer. There was no technique to speak of, just brutal and barbaric striking. The beautiful and magnificent red-gold pupils of the fog demon bled and burst, its skull shattered, and white brain matter sprayed out from its eyes and nostrils, as a large pool of scorching blood slowly condensed beneath its head. Its majestic pure white head slowly became a blurry mass of flesh under Su Heng's pounding. In the beginning, the body of the fog demon convulsed, still struggling. The uncontrolled five tails whipped Su Heng like long whips, leaving trivial red marks. But soon, it couldn't even struggle. Its brain, those central systems controlling its body, were violently destroyed. The tails weakly fell to the ground, plopping down, and a foul-smelling turbid yellow mixture spurted from behind. It also represented the complete end of this formidable life. Huff! Su Heng's chest heaved dramatically. He slowly stood up, the terrifying red light in his eyes gradually faded. Since he began practicing martial arts, the creature before him could be considered one of the most dangerous and terrifying he had ever encountered. Strong, barely less formidable than himself. Moreover, it possessed a bizarre talent and high intelligence, setting traps, luring him here. A series of processes came down, surprisingly making Su Heng feel a direct sense of life and death crisis. But now, slowly reflecting back, Su Heng felt no fear in his heart. Instead, he was filled with a gratifying sense of catharsis. As if this was what he truly longed for. Must not be careless. Su Heng shook his head, casting that dangerous thought out of his mind. The demon's talent was bizarre and terrifying, and its intelligence was no less than that of humans. If he had been weaker and suffered a sneak attack, then lying in the pool of blood wouldn't be the fog demon, but him, Su Heng. Though a monster, it was indeed a worthy opponent. Looking at the bloody body of the fog demon, Su Heng chuckled softly. To show respect, I will properly relish your flesh and blood. He bent down, nonchalantly picked up the fog demon's head, hanging it on his shoulder like a backpack. The over 3-meter-long body of the fog demon wasn't light, but Su Heng felt no weight at all. With a light tap of his toes, he suddenly surged forward over 10 meters. But, walking, Su Heng suddenly stopped. Something's not right. He narrowed his eyes, seemingly realizing something, and abruptly turned back to look behind him. In the dark and quiet forest, wisps of fog hovered like white silk, lush branches blocked the sunlight casting shadows. There was no wind, nor any sound. Looking at the eerily silent forest before him, Su Heng's expression turned completely somber. It shouldn't be. The fog demon was clearly slain by himself, its body slung over his shoulder. But the fog created by the fog demon's talent could still exist in this forest, which was abnormal. Unless the pale cheetah he had just killed was not the actual body of the fog demon,